Yusho searched the exam results with hope, but his number was nowhere to be found among the successful candidates. Leaving the building, he lowered his head in disappointment, after failing the entrance exam once again. Instead of making excuses, Yusho reflected on his shortcomings and concluded that he had not worked hard enough. As he thought about preparing for another attempt next year, a commotion inside a nearby store caught his attention. Moments later, he realized a robbery was taking place. Seeing the armed criminal threaten the cashier, the robber grew impatient and threatened the cashier again, causing her fear to deepen as the situation became more dangerous. Without hesitation, Yusho grabbed a nearby broom and rushed forward. Following the first strike, he landed another blow that hit the robber directly, leaving the criminal stunned and unable to react. Soon, the robber collapsed onto the floor. The cashier quickly secured the scene while Yusho calmly stood nearby. After the danger passed, the relieved cashier expressed her gratitude. Yusho quietly left the store, unaware that his life was about to change. A sudden flash filled Yusho's vision when he opened his eyes. He found himself standing alone in a strange white space beneath an endless sky. Confused by his surroundings, he noticed another figure nearby and began to wonder whether he had already died. The unfamiliar old man immediately apologized, leaving Yusho even more puzzled about the situation. Although he struggled to understand what was happening, Yusho calmly listened as the old man explained himself. Then came a shocking confession. The old man revealed that a spell had accidentally taken Yusho's life, making him realize the robbery had been his final moment. The old man revealed that he was a demigod and explained that Yusho had arrived in a realm between life and heaven after an unexpected accident. Hearing this, Yusho panicked and worried about what would become of him after his sudden death. To make amends, the demigod decided to use his power to grant Yusho a new life. Unfortunately, returning him to Earth was impossible, leaving reincarnation in another world as the only option. Soon, Yusho learned that his destination would be a fantasy world filled with magic, swords, and endless possibilities. The demigod described a world filled with magic, dangerous regions, and powerful creatures that threatened the lives of the unprepared. After explaining the risks, he offered Yusho a special innate skill as compensation for the mistake that had ended his life. Before accepting, Yusho carefully considered his future and prepared several questions about the world awaiting him. His first concern was reincarnation. The answers revealed that he would be born as an ordinary human from infancy. Next, Yusho asked about magic. Learning that humans could use it sparked his interest in the possibilities ahead. The demigod explained the elemental attributes of magic and instructed Yusho to check his status before reincarnation. Following the advice, Yusho activated the status screen and watched a transparent panel appear before him. Several abilities were displayed, revealing unexpectedly high potential that impressed even the demigod. As their time grew short, the demigod allowed Yusho one final request before sending him away. After a moment of thought, Yusho chose a talent that rewarded effort fairly, believing hard work should always lead to growth. The demigod found Yusho's request surprisingly ordinary, expecting him to ask for a more powerful or unique ability, rather than seeking immediate strength. Yusho explained that steady growth was more valuable because his natural abilities might never improve much on their own. After considering the idea, the demigod granted an innate talent designed around long-term development. The ability greatly increased the effort required for growth, but each achievement rewarded far greater gains than normal. Realizing its potential, Yusho eagerly accepted the talent, convinced it would allow him to surpass ordinary limits through hard work. Before their farewell, the demigod granted Yusho an additional ability that could analyze people, perceive magic, and function even in darkness. Yusho then asked what would happen to the demigod after helping him reincarnate into another world. The answer revealed a heavy cost. Most of the demigod's remaining power would be divided among his clones, leaving little behind. With time running out, the demigod entrusted future explanations to those clones and prepared the final transfer. Soon afterward, Yusho was reborn as a newborn child named Mars Bryant. During his first year as Mars Bryant, he quietly tested clairvoyance and learned how to inspect objects and monitor his magical energy. Repeated practice gradually increased his mana reserves. As time passed, Mars became more active and often explored the house, while the rest of the family went about their daily routines. Using clairvoyance on his relatives, he discovered that each family member possessed different talents, abilities, and magical attributes. The knowledge confirmed that he had been reborn into a world where strength and magic shaped everyday life. As Mars grew older, his constant training greatly expanded his mana reserves, far beyond what he possessed at birth. Whenever he exhausted his mana completely, he noticed further growth after resting, encouraging him to continue experimenting. Curiosity soon turned toward magic itself. Despite repeated attempts, however, he could not activate any spells on his own. Unable to make progress alone, Mars decided it was finally time to seek guidance from his family. During a meal, he surprised everyone by directly asking his parents how magic was used in their world. Mars eagerly explained that he wanted to learn magic as early as possible so he could grow stronger through effort and practice. His curiosity soon shifted toward healing magic, and he became especially interested in whether injuries could be cured with it. To his parents' surprise, Mars revealed that he wanted to heal the wounds they carried, leaving both of them speechless. Recognizing the importance of his words, the couple quietly discussed his unusual potential and possible magical talent. That evening, the children were sent to bed while their parents prepared to make an important decision about Mars's future. The next day, Mars's parents agreed to teach him magic. They explained the importance of holy magic and warned him to keep any special talent hidden from other people. Training began with the basics. Guided by his brother, Mars learned how to locate the source of magical energy within himself. Although sensing mana was easy, controlling its flow throughout his body proved far more difficult than expected. After persistent effort, both brothers succeeded. Seeing the results, their parents prepared a crystal to identify each child's magical affinity. The appraisal results revealed extraordinary potential. Mars possessed an enormous mana reserve and multiple magical affinities, far beyond his family's expectations. Recognizing their talents, the family obtained grimoires and prepared both children for proper magical training. Under their parents' guidance, Mars studied the basics and learned how to gather mana before casting a spell. Following the instructions carefully, he released his first wind spell, creating a powerful gust that swept across the training area. Amazed by his immediate success, the entire family celebrated together while praising Mars for his remarkable achievement. A few days later, Mars continued mastering magic at an astonishing pace while Ike successfully learned fire magic. 1 year later, Mars and the blonde boy stood before the mansion, continuing their daily training. With steady breaths, both focused deeply and gathered magical energy within their bodies. Their practice intensified. Mars improved his fencing and fire magic, while the blonde boy greatly strengthened his wind magic. Once training ended, they returned home and found family members arriving from a journey. The visitors were welcomed back. After completing their mission, they brought home something valuable and shared the good news. The family revealed a rare fire spirit sword. Its power could increase the user's magical ability, making it a valuable treasure. Recognizing Mars's dedication, his father decided to entrust the sword to him as a reward. Next, the blonde boy received a beginner holy magic grimoire and eagerly began studying it. Repeated attempts brought little success at first. Even so, he continued practicing healing magic without giving up. Persistence finally paid off. After countless trials, the boy successfully cast Heal and celebrated his long-awaited breakthrough. The blonde boy proudly revealed that he had finally learned Heal. Meanwhile, Mars continued training with an ordinary sword, despite receiving a better one. Their conversation suddenly stopped when both sensed something unusual nearby. Rushing toward the entrance, they found their parents returning in a battered condition and immediately became concerned. The adults explained that they had been injured during their journey. Seeing the wounds, the blonde boy stepped forward. Without hesitation, he cast Heal. Soft light covered the injuries, leaving everyone stunned by his unexpected success. The blonde boy continued casting Heal, carefully treating his mother after helping his father. A soft glow covered both parents. Moments later, their injuries disappeared, leaving them surprised by the result. After confirming that the pain was gone, the family looked at the young healer with amazement and gratitude. Overjoyed by his achievement, his mother rushed forward and embraced him tightly. Laughter filled the entrance as the family celebrated. While everyone admired the boy's growth, the father quietly watched with a thoughtful expression. That evening, the family gathered around the table to discuss the future of Mars and Ike. Their father explained that he and his wife worked as adventurers, exploring dungeons and eliminating dangerous monsters. He revealed that a recent mission involved a monster ordered to be hunted by the local lord. Seeing Mars use holy magic gave him a new idea. The children were asked if they would help with future work, though no decision would be made until they were older. Both eagerly agreed to grow stronger, determined to support their parents when the time finally came. The parents revealed exciting news. Soon, Mars and Ike would welcome a new sibling into the family. Both boys reacted with surprise and excitement, immediately looking forward to meeting the baby one. Year later, their training continued. Wooden swords clashed as they practiced and refined their skills together. The sparring match quickly intensified. Each side exchanged swift attacks while searching for an opening. Neither wanted to yield. Their swords collided head-on, showing how much stronger they had become through constant training. another year of training passed. Mars and Ike steadily improved their skills, becoming far stronger than before. Among the year's achievements, Ike successfully learned to use a magic sword, impressing the entire family. Soon after, their long-awaited little sister Lina was born and brought great joy to the household. Gathered around her cradle, the family admired the newborn and warmly welcomed their newest member. A year later, the parents recognized the boy's growth and announced that they would soon begin helping with monster extermination beyond town. During the discussion, their father suggested bringing Mars along as support because of his sacred magic. Mars and Ike agreed, believing his healing ability could help keep everyone safe during battles. However, their mother strongly opposed the idea. She felt both boys were still too young for such dangerous work. Wanting a clear answer, the family turned to Mars and asked what he truly thought. Mars chose to support his father and Ike, yet also acknowledged his mother's concerns, hoping to find a solution everyone could accept. After much discussion, their mother finally agreed. She reminded the group to stay together and prepare for any danger. Their father accepted the responsibility and promised to bring potions in case healing magic was not enough. The next day, the three set out together, leaving home behind. They began their first mission outside town. Before hunting monsters, they stopped at the guild to handle preparations and gather information. Inside, Mars noticed children his age for the first time. Curious, he quietly observed them and realized they possessed impressive abilities as well. After leaving the guild, the group accepted a monster subjugation quest and headed toward the hunting area. Following their father through town, Mars and Ike eagerly set out on their first real mission. Reaching the outskirts, they surveyed the open fields. Before long, signs of movement caught their attention. Suspicious noises echoed from a nearby forest, prompting everyone to focus on the source. Moments later, the creatures revealed themselves. A small group of goblins appeared, becoming the party's first target. Facing the goblins, their father decided to turn the encounter into a lesson. Ike was instructed to defeat the final enemy himself. Before the attack began, the father demonstrated earth magic and told the boys to watch carefully. Several stone bullets shot forward and struck the charging goblins, instantly reducing their numbers. With only one goblin remaining, Ike stepped forward while his father checked whether his fire magic was ready. Gathering his focus, Ike released a fire spell. The blazing attack rushed toward the last goblin and swallowed it whole. After defeating the goblin, their father praised Ike and taught the boys how to collect magic stones and dispose of monster corpses. Excited by the battle, Mars asked for a chance to use his own magic during the next encounter. The request surprised their father when Mars revealed that he had already learned a new spell called Wind Cutter. Although impressed, their father suggested saving the technique for the next battle and continuing forward. Soon, another group of goblins appeared. As the monsters charged, Mars prepared himself and waited for the perfect moment to attack. Mars carefully observed the battlefield and guided Ike, helping him focus on the remaining goblin. At the right moment, Mars unleashed Wind Cutter. The attack sliced through several goblins and disrupted their advance. Taking advantage of the opening, Ike rushed forward and finished the last enemy with a clean strike. Satisfied with their teamwork, their father praised both boys. After defeating a few more goblins, the group prepared to return home. Mars and Ike rushed forward together, launching a coordinated attack during their training session. The monster lost its strength and fell onto the grass. Its defeat marked the end of the battle. Soon after, a mysterious energy began gathering around Ike's hand. The unexpected change immediately caught his attention. A status screen appeared before him, showing that he had reached a new level. Several of his abilities increased as a result. With the training finished, Ike happily celebrated his achievement. Mars and their instructor acknowledged his progress before leading the group home. After seeing Ike level up, Mars became determined to achieve the same result. The thought stayed with him from morning until training began. Later, he entered the forest and faced a large group of goblins. A powerful wave of magic burst from his body. The attack spread in every direction and overwhelmed the charging monsters. Once the dust settled, goblins covered the ground. Mars successfully gained a level, and his abilities increased significantly. While everyone recognized his achievement, they also noticed the unusually large number of goblins gathered in one place. Mars's father noticed the unusually high number of goblin encounters. The situation seemed abnormal and required further investigation. Reports soon revealed that monsters were appearing across the region. With adventurers already occupied, the guild announced a special quest. During the discussion, Ike quickly volunteered to participate. He wanted to help uncover the cause. Despite warnings about possible dangers, Ike remained determined. The risks failed to change his mind. Mars chose not to join, Although he had grown stronger, he believed he still lacked the strength needed for the mission. Mars's father postponed the dangerous quest. Instead, he decided the group should continue training and gaining experience. Soon after, they encountered a kobold alone. The monster posed little threat. However, countless kobolds suddenly appeared from every direction. The group found themselves surrounded. Rather than panic, Mars's father led everyone into motion. He planned to break the enemy formation. Following his instructions, Mars and Ike attacked together. As the battle began, Mars sensed something unusual about the situation. Working together, Mars and Ike cut through the kobold pack. Their coordinated attacks quickly reduced the monster's numbers. A month later, both had grown stronger through constant training. Another successful hunt earned Mars a new level. After finishing their hunt, the pair returned home while the remains of defeated monsters burned behind them. That night, Mars reflected on the Heaven Eye ability. He felt the time had come to reveal its existence. The following day, Mars gathered his parents. Having gained a new appraisal function, he prepared to share an important secret. Mars revealed that Heaven Eye allowed him to view the status of people and objects. His parents were stunned by the unexpected ability. After hearing the explanation, the family praised Mars. His talent exceeded anything they had imagined. Soon, Mars returned to the topic of the monster investigation. He believed the growing goblin population could no longer be ignored. Listening carefully, his parents agreed with the concern. They were pleased to see how much Mars and Ike had matured. With everyone in agreement, Mars's father decided to accept the named quest and begin the investigation the next day. The next day, Mars, Ike, and Mars's father departed to investigate the named quest. Their mother stayed behind and saw them off. As the wagon traveled west, Mars learned that an abandoned mine lay ahead. The location immediately drew their attention. During the journey, Mars quietly eliminated a monster that approached the road. Eventually, they arrived near a settlement connected to the investigation. From a high vantage point, the three surveyed the crowded scene below. The unusual gathering suggested that something significant was happening. After observing the goblins below, Mars's father gathered Mars and Ike. He quickly explained a plan to control the situation. Following the instructions, Ike cast fire magic into the center of the crowd. As expected, the monsters rushed toward the group. Their movements became concentrated in a single direction. Mars then unleashed a barrage of magic across the charging horde. Explosions spread through the packed enemies. With the goblins trapped by the strategy, Mars and his father prepared to finish them off together. Mars collected the magic stones left behind. The rewards were plentiful, and he gained another level. Soon afterward, Mars called his father over. Something nearby had caught his attention. Ahead of them stood an enormous door unlike anything they had seen before. Curiosity quickly replaced their earlier confidence. Carefully, the group approached and examined the structure. The mysterious entrance appeared sealed for a long time. As the door slowly opened, a giant goblin emerged from the darkness. The unexpected sight left everyone frozen in shock. The giant goblin stepped forward from the doorway, revealing itself as a hobgoblin. Numerous goblins gathered behind their leader, recognizing the threat. Mars's father quickly formed a plan. The group decided to eliminate the smaller goblins first. Immediately, Ike and Mars charged into action. Their attacks cleared a path through the surrounding enemies. Soon, the hobgoblin stood alone before them. The battle shifted toward defeating the true leader. Even after taking several direct hits, the hobgoblin remained standing. Its toughness proved greater than expected. Ike launched himself toward the hobgoblin, aiming to end the fight with a powerful strike before the attack could land. The hobgoblin countered and forced Ike back. Its strength exceeded his expectations. Recognizing an opening, Mars focused on the monster's weak point. Ike adjusted his movements to support the plan. A precise attack struck the hobgoblin's eye. The injury disrupted its focus and created an opportunity. Taking advantage of the opening, Ike rushed in again. This time his blade closed in on the wounded target. Using the opening they created, Ike delivered the decisive strike. The hobgoblin finally collapsed, ending the battle. After the victory, the group collected the rewards. Among them was an unusually large magic stone that immediately drew attention. Beyond the doorway, they discovered a labyrinth. The finding explained why so many goblins had appeared nearby, rather than rush deeper. Mars's father considered the danger carefully. The possibility of a monster overflow could not be ignored. With caution in mind, the three entered to investigate briefly. Their goal was to gather information before returning with a report. While exploring the labyrinth, the group discovered 3 hooded goblin mages waiting ahead. Their presence immediately raised concern. Mars's father quickly identified the monsters and recognized the danger. Magic users could become a serious threat if left unchecked. Without hesitation, the 3 rushed forward. Speed became their greatest advantage against the mages. Before any spell could be completed, they struck first. The goblin mages were overwhelmed by the sudden assault. After defeating the enemies, the group noticed a treasure chest hidden nearby. The unexpected reward caught their attention. After finding the treasure chest, the group stayed cautious and asked Mars to inspect it for hidden dangers before opening it. Using his appraisal ability, Mars examined the chest and discovered that its contents depended on the owner's luck rather than any trap. Once the inspection was complete, the chest was safely opened. The group waited as Mars checked the reward inside. A fire bracelet was revealed from the chest. The valuable item increased magic power, giving the party a useful new treasure. Zeke arrived at the guild with 2 young boys beside him. Inside the hall, he confirmed to the receptionist that the children were with him and should be included in the meeting. The guildmaster welcomed Zeke warmly, acknowledging the success of his recent mission with measured praise. Curious about the boys, the master asked who they were. Zeke introduced them as his sons, Ike and Mars. As the boys stood silently, Zeke turned back to the master. Zeke explained the situation, reporting that hobgoblins and goblin mages had overrun an abandoned village that had transformed into a labyrinth. He warned that the labyrinth saturation was beginning, which could escalate into a significant regional threat if not addressed. Afterward, he informed the guildmaster that he would discuss the matter further with Count Carmel. He requested registration for the 2 boys, highlighting their role in the recent investigation. Despite concern over their age, Zeke defended them. Ike conjured flames while Mars summoned wind, both displaying their talents before the astonished guildmaster. Impressed by their power, the master immediately approved their official registration as adventurers without further hesitation. Grateful and excited, the 2 boys smiled brightly, expressing their thanks with sincere enthusiasm. Later, while training outside, Mars admitted defeat, but Ike encouraged him with confidence in his potential. Their father arrived soon after, warmly welcomed home by both sons as their training continued. At the table, Zeke proposed, dividing the previous mission reward fairly between himself and the boys. Mars expressed interest in learning earth magic with his father's guidance. Hearing their modest requests, Zeke laughed, agreeing to teach Mars and noting their lack of greed. Shortly after, Zeke handed them adventurer cards, both ranked E, and mentioned a new task from the guild. He revealed the mission's goal, managing the labyrinth, with a noble title as the promised reward. Everyone agreed to accept the mission, with Zeke finalizing the decision after hearing each of their opinions. The team set out days later, joining other adventurers and settlers as they journeyed toward the designated region. 6 months passed, and the group had grown stronger. They were later thanked by a party named Azure Fangs for protecting a young girl named Lena. With their efforts rewarded, the Bryant family settled into their new home under the Baron's title. Zeke informed the group they would descend into the labyrinth together and instructed everyone to make preparations. They gathered before the dungeon's entrance, ensuring their gear and minds were ready for what lay ahead. Without hesitation, the 4 of them marched forward with determination. A massive horde of monsters emerged from the darkness, waiting near the gate as Zeke issued the order. Ike and Mars stepped forward, accepting the challenge with confidence as the enemy force closed in together. Ike and Mars launched themselves into the goblin horde, one wielding a spear, the other casting magic. With precision and force, Ike shifted his stance and struck through the advancing enemies. Suddenly, more goblins and several robed mages entered the fray, unleashing a barrage of dark spells. Responding quickly, Mars countered their attacks while spinning mid-air, disrupting the mage's casting. Maintaining his momentum, he extended the arc of his slash, clearing a path through the enemy ranks. Mars came face to face with a towering brute. He dodged its downward strike, closing the distance swiftly. Swinging his blade with sharp precision, he spun into an upward slash aimed directly at its face. The creature staggered, howling as it clutched its injured eyes. From behind, Ike followed up with a powerful thrust, his spear slicing through the exposed target. With the battle won, the brothers stood before the fallen monster and the treasure that awaited them. While exploring deeper into the dungeon, the group discovered a powerful weapon, a flame lance with high attack stats. A mysterious gate appeared ahead, glowing faintly, signaling they were nearing a significant area. After reaching a safe zone, they took a short break, enjoying food and a moment of peace together. Mars rested nearby, his stats showing noticeable growth since their adventure had begun. The team descended to the second floor, immediately surrounded by towering enemies, ready for battle. Focused expressions lined each of their faces as the team prepared for what lay beyond the next gate. A thunderous sound echoed through the corridor, growing louder with every passing second. Once the doors opened, they stepped into a massive chamber filled with fallen enemies and looming silence. Without warning, an army emerged, led by a towering armored figure, its presence imposing and unmistakable. Stats revealed the threat. The goblin general stood before them, ready to test their strength. Zeke and his wife stood at the front, telling the boys to observe as they prepared to handle the threat. Activating their magic, they summoned Earth Fortress and Ice Fortress to defend against the charging enemies. The domes formed quickly, shielding them as goblins crashed into the barriers with confusion and panic. Furious, the goblin general leapt forward, slamming both axes down in an attempt to break through. At that moment, both parents gave the signal coordinated and calm. Crystals launched in all directions, overwhelming the goblin horde while Ike and Mars watched in awe. In the center of the chaos, the goblin general stood wounded, struggling to stay upright. After a tense moment, he collapsed to the floor, motionless among the defeated minions. With calm expressions, Zeke and his wife turned around, asking the boys what they thought. Filled with excitement, both sons cheered, amazed by their parents' overwhelming display of strength. In the city of Granzam, Clarice enjoyed a peaceful moment, cradling a small creature in her arms. The calm was soon interrupted as she entered a recovery room filled with wounded adventurers lying on beds. One injured man lifted his hand weakly, asking for her help as she approached his bedside, channeling her magic. Clarice cast a powerful healing spell, bathing the room in light. In a sealed chamber deep underground, goblin generals respawned endlessly. Mars the blonde-haired youth gripped his sword as Ike, the black-haired young man, led him forward into the trial room. Ike faced the horde calmly, declaring Mars would train here until he could overcome the swarm alone. Side by side, they fought relentlessly, cutting down enemy after enemy with sharp coordination. A year later, Mars leapt into battle alone, confident, strong and ready. Mars and Ike stood tall. Their stats revealed the result of relentless effort, different strengths, but equal resolve. Their instructor praised their progress, signaling the end of their training phase and readiness for new challenges. The group ascended to floor 3, where a towering door hinted at the danger that awaited beyond. Without hesitation, the team pushed forward, eyes fixed ahead, as the doors creaked open ominously. Inside, the Goblin Lord stood with guards at his side, its menacing presence marking the true test. At the heart of the throne room, the Goblin King sat unmoved, exuding arrogance and command. His sudden roar shattered the silence as his stats revealed overwhelming strength and dangerous summoning magic. The group tensed. Mars recognized the spell, and the leader quietly invoked a promise to fallen parents. 2 armored titans emerged beside the king. Mars and Ike stepped forward without waiting for orders. Their blades clashed against steel, as their allies watched in awe from behind. Mars and Ike launched forward, leaping past the defeated guards toward the Goblin King's throne. Steel clashed violently as Ike blocked a massive swing while Mars aimed straight for the king's chest. The Goblin King smirked, amused by their attempt, but shifted his stance as the pressure grew. Both charged again, combining speed and timing, their blades cutting from opposite angles in sync. With a final coordinated strike, Ike pierced the king's core as Mars delivered a crushing blow. The Goblin King, wounded but furious, roared and prepared a savage counterattack without hesitation. Ike rushed forward to parry the king's swing, narrowly stopping a fatal strike with all his strength. A powerful blow broke through and struck Ike, forcing him back and leaving him clutching his side. Mars panicked and moved to help, but the enemy was already closing the distance. Before any spell could be cast, the king lunged again, giving them no chance to recover. Then Mars stepped forward alone, staring down the Goblin King with his blade drawn and resolve firm. He dodged a heavy swing and retaliated, slicing across the king's side but feeling the impact himself. Knocked back by a powerful blow, he hit the wall hard but quickly steadied himself. Without delay, Mars lunged again, sword ready, matching the king's charge with focused precision. Their eyes locked as both prepared to strike. Neither yielding ground, the Goblin King unleashed a wide swing, but Mars ducked under with flawless timing. He closed in, striking the king's leg mid-spin, catching his opponent off guard shaken. The Goblin King attempted to recover by casting a summoning spell for reinforcements. Mars responded instantly, unleashing a powerful tornado technique that tore through the battlefield. Witnessing the storm's power, the Goblin King froze eyes wide with fear. Mars stood over the defeated Goblin King, smiling calmly with his mana completely drained. A brilliant notification appeared he'd earned the titles Wind King and Goblin Slayer for his solo feat. Cheers erupted from his friends as they rushed in. Praise and awe filled the air far from the battlefield. Peaceful life continued in the quiet city of Granzam. Elsewhere, a girl named Clarice set off with a cheerful smile, unaware of what awaited. Clarice worked tirelessly at the clinic, casting healing spells for injured townspeople from the mourning crowd. Wiping sweat from her brow, she called the next patient. Noticing the line growing longer each day, rumors of kobolds near the city unsettled her. Whispers of a possible labyrinth overflow added concern. While walking past a large building, she paused, realizing it was a public bathhouse. Inside, she joined other women, soaking quietly, letting the warmth ease her tension and fatigue. Clarice leaned back in the bath, the warmth easing every muscle after a long day of healing. As she soaked quietly, thoughts crept in. Injuries were rising, and monsters had reached the city. She sank deeper into the water, hoping the rumors of a labyrinth overflow wouldn't come true. After stepping out, she smiled softly, feeling refreshed, until a strange sound caught her attention. Her eyes lit up upon spotting a chubby cat nearby, and she couldn't resist giving it attention. Within a dungeon, monster numbers are typically stable, yet abnormalities can cause excessive growth. Eventually, creatures pour out of the labyrinth, an event feared as a labyrinth overflow. At a quiet cafe, Clarice listened attentively as the man explained the phenomenon, in simple terms. Though concerned, she chuckled when he reassured her such overflows were rare and not to worry. Grateful for the meal and kindness, Clarice accepted the dessert, her tension replaced with a smile. Clarice enjoyed her dessert, savoring each bite with pure satisfaction and a bright smile. Meanwhile, at the fortress gates, knights assembled under orders to prevent a labyrinth overflow through a monster cull. Their captain, fueled by duty, rallied the unit with a fierce vow to protect both the residents and the count. Tension rose as unsettling noises echoed from the dungeon, causing the knights to exchange uneasy glances. Facing the massive gate alone, the commander braced himself, uncertain of what horrors waited inside. As the dungeon gates opened, a flood of goblins surged forward, overwhelming the commander with sheer numbers. Thrown to the ground, he shouted desperately while the horde spilled into the clearing, catching the knights off guard. With no time to regroup, soldiers clashed blades against the advancing swarm, forced into a brutal fight for survival. From the tower, a stunned watchman rang the alarm, realizing the threat was worse than anticipated. Panic swept through the city as bells told a labyrinth overflow had begun, and evacuation was immediate. Inside the tavern, Clarice's parents sensed danger. Her father ordered her to return home immediately as the situation escalated. But outside, the chaos was growing. She overheard cries for help. An adventurer had fallen during the defense. Without hesitation, Clarice dashed toward the scene, determined to assist those in need despite the danger around her. Meanwhile, her parents joined the defense, striking down goblins, alongside the town guard with fearless resolve. Kneeling beside the wounded, Clarice summoned her magic and cast a healing spell. Clarice healed another villager, drawing attention from more injured townsfolk who pleaded for help. Motivated by her resolve, the townspeople rallied, joining the front line as goblins charged through the streets. In another part of town, chaos erupted as a new wave of monsters ambushed the fleeing crowd unexpectedly. Panic spread fast. The residents scattered in fear, desperate to escape the rapidly advancing horde, despite pleas for support. The overwhelmed guards refused aid, warning they had reached their limit already. With no reinforcements coming, the townspeople braced themselves to fight back on their own. Clarice focused on healing, but her thoughts drifted toward her parents' safety. Amid the chaos, relief washed over her when she spotted them approaching together, visibly shaken but unharmed. As she rushed to assist, her father stopped her, insisting others needed healing more urgently. Nearby wounded citizens argued bitterly, each demanding to be treated first above the rest. Tensions flared as injured townspeople began shouting, each demanding to be healed first without waiting. From within the crowd, a nobleman approached Clarice confidently, expecting immediate attention. He asserted his status as a noble and insisted he be treated before anyone else. Unmoved, Clarice listened in silence as the man pointed to his arm, requesting aid. Upon seeing the minor scratch, she politely declined, choosing instead to treat the adventurers in greater need. Without warning, the noble struck Clarice across the face, enraged by her refusal. The crowd gasped in shock as she held her cheek, stunned by the sudden aggression. Enraged, the man raised his voice and accused her of disrespect, threatening her with execution. Clarice remained seated on the ground, dazed and speechless from the unexpected violence. Before further harm could be done, her father rushed in, embracing her protectively. Clarice's father bowed in desperation, pleading for forgiveness to protect his daughter from further harm. Collapsed from the blow, he lay still as Clarice cried out and begged for his life. She attempted to heal him repeatedly, but her mana was completely depleted, leaving her helpless. The noble declared them criminals and raised his sword, intent on delivering punishment himself. From all sides, townspeople and adventurers closed in as tension thickened around the looming threat. Then the noble raised his sword high, preparing to strike Clarice without mercy. Suddenly, a young boy lunged forward and struck the noble with a powerful blow. With fierce determination, the boy rushed past the crowd to protect Clarice and the fallen. Everyone watched in silence as he stood between the victims and the unconscious noble. Without delay, he placed his hand on the wounded man and began casting a healing spell. The noble lay unconscious while the boy stood guard near the resting townsman, sword in hand. Turning swiftly, he prepared to rejoin the battle, pushing aside questions to focus on the threat. Chaos erupted in the town as citizens gathered, alarmed by the sudden threat approaching the city. Clarice, a blonde-haired woman among the crowd, looked ahead in disbelief, captivated by what she saw. Mars, a young man with blonde hair, stood alone amidst fallen goblins. He had defeated them all by himself. The townspeople swarmed around Mars, praising his strength and courage with loud cheers. She approached Mars, urging him to address urgent matters concerning the nobles. Count Beetle arrived with his knights, calling for the injured to step forward and report the situation. Baron Dames rushed in dramatically, demanding treatment and claiming to be under attack by an unknown assailant. Beetle dismissed the Baron's pleas, insisting the critically wounded be treated first, angering the noble. Frustrated, Baron Dames blamed everything on a so-called scoundrel with clenched fists and a red face. Later, in a quiet square, Mars humbly apologized to Count Beetle. Clarice observed Mars quietly, surprised he was her age yet so capable. Something about him felt oddly familiar. With a grateful smile, she thanked him sincerely. Mars froze, catching a phrase in Japanese. Realization hit. She too had been reincarnated. Memories of another life surfaced in his mind. Without hesitation, Mars embraced her. The reunion felt long overdue. Finally, they remembered everything. Aoi Ayano and Yusho, now reborn as Clarice and Mars. Mars politely introduced himself and Clarice to a pair of strangers while explaining his language difficulties. Inside a home, a voice raised in shock upon learning Mars had come from the Balkis kingdom. Curiosity followed as he explained his arrival in Granzam, far east of Zarkum Kingdom. He recalled traveling with his older brother Ike through a labyrinth dungeon. During their search, they found a strange wall, and Mars got pulled in by its magic. Mars gave a final message to his brother before being pulled entirely into a new place without warning. Gray informed him that Zarkum and Balkis were currently at war, complicating his situation. Despite the tension, Elena and Gray offered Mars a place to stay and promised warm hospitality. Gratefully, Mars accepted, expressing his appreciation and hope for peaceful days ahead. Later, Clarice asked to speak with Mars directly, bringing a smile to his face. Clarice cheerfully invited Mars to her room, dragging him along before anyone could stop them. Seated together, she asked him about what happened after being struck by lightning. Mars began sharing visions of his past, revealing strange encounters and memories from another world. She realized a familiar thief also existed here. They agreed to avoid speaking Japanese publicly. Moments later, Mars noticed troops mobilizing goblins had returned. Danger was near once again. Peering outside, Mars took in the sight before making a quiet decision he would step in and assist. Clarice, caught off guard, questioned his choice, noting the people involved were from a rival kingdom. With calm conviction, Mars explained that nationality didn't define worth, compassion transcended borders. Inspired by his words, Clarice made a silent vow to protect those dear to her without hesitation. Without saying more, she pulled Mars into a hug, her voice trembling as she expressed sincere thanks. Mars stepped forward as Gray informed him of another goblin appearance, declaring he'd join the fight. Worried, Gray warned him about the risk of being exposed as someone from Balkis. Smiling calmly, Mars replied he was ready for the consequences, then dashed out into the city. With determination in his stride, he rushed through the streets calling out to approaching knights. Facing Baron Dames again, Mars politely asked to fight beside them, despite the noble's angry outburst. Mars was accused of theft, but the commander urged everyone to focus on the battle first. Before further judgment, a knight vouched for Mars, revealing he had defeated the previous goblin wave alone. Acknowledging the request for help, Mars accepted the task without hesitation and assured victory. Meanwhile, the front line was overwhelmed. Soldiers fell rapidly under goblin attacks. Captain Blair, exhausted and cornered, realized retreat would doom the injured and civilians. He stood firm, facing a towering goblin, determined to buy time for the villagers behind her. With sweat on her brow, she braced herself for the enemy's strike, accepting what was to come. Suddenly, the giant goblin flinched as a hidden blade pierced its shoulder, throwing it into confusion. Mars dashed beneath its feet, narrowly avoiding retaliation while pressing forward with speed. Recognizing him, the knights exclaimed he was the Sword Saint, and their hope had arrived. Then Mars assured everyone that the goblins had been completely defeated, bringing relief to the exhausted soldiers. He suggested returning to report to the Count, leading the knights back through the battlefield. Crowds outside cheered, hailing him as the sword saint, while their fear of the goblins faded. The Count praised Mars for saving Grantham, promising to discuss rewards and future plans later. Later, the Adventurers Guild welcomed Mars, expressing gratitude for protecting the town from disaster. Mars introduced himself to the guild master, requesting answers about the labyrinth overflow. He asked if there was any method to stop the dangerous flood of monsters from spreading. The guild master explained that clearing the labyrinth could stop it, though the timing was uncertain. Mars learned that the nation was at war and manpower was limited, leaving no clear timeline. Determined, he declared that he would clear the labyrinth himself, taking responsibility for the task. The guild master shouted that no adventurer could survive the labyrinth alone, even skilled ones. From the doorway, Clarice declared she would go with Mars, ready to face the danger. His eyes met hers, recognizing her determination and unwavering resolve to join the mission. Clarice stood her ground, determined to accompany Mars into the labyrinth, despite objections. She believed the threat of an overflow posed a greater danger. Mars stepped forward and calmly requested permission for Clarice to join. After brief hesitation, the officials agreed and promised their full support given the circumstances. When asked about his reward, Mars requested protection for the Lampard family. The commander accepted without hesitation. With their objective clear, Mars and Clarice prepared for the mission ahead. Under the moonlight, Mars was officially registered as an adventurer, leaving a strong impression on the officials. Clarice's parents, surprisingly, offered no resistance. They entrusted her to Mars with warm smiles and confidence. Lying in bed, Mars thought about the dangers ahead. The next day, both stood ready, swords in hand, prepared to begin training before challenging the labyrinth. Mars activated his Heaven's Eye, evaluating Clarice's stats. Their goal was set: strengthen Clarice through focused training. Clarice discovered she had untapped potential in barrier magic, surprising even herself. Despite not knowing how to use it, she stayed optimistic. Revealing her aptitude for wind and holy magic, Clarice began to understand her role as a mage rather than a swordsman. Mars explained that growth came fastest through real experience, not just hard work. He introduced her to her first challenge, a goblin, to test her in battle. Then Clarice struggled with the sword's weight, anxiety creeping in as the goblin charged forward. A sudden blow from the goblin sent Clarice reeling, her body collapsing from the impact. Concerned, Mars approached quickly and asked if she was hurt, but Clarice forced a small nod, hiding her disappointment. Memories of her father's defeat resurfaced, and helplessness burned in her chest as she clenched her fists. Rather than give up, she looked at Mars and asked for one more chance with unwavering determination. With sword in hand, Clarice steadied her breathing, telling herself this time. Clarice swung her sword just as the goblin lunged, landing a clean strike. The goblin collapsed at her feet, and she stood stunned by her own success, while Mars praised her effort. Relief rushed through her as she dropped to her knees. The pressure that had built finally faded. From that moment, she trained relentlessly, pushing herself through fatigue and constant battles. Through victories and gear earned, Clarice steadily advanced, her strength growing with each passing day. Mars and Clarice walked through town, discussing the rise in unfamiliar visitors seen near the local clinic. As they turned a corner, Mars suddenly froze, a sharp instinct taking hold. Though unsure, he felt the weight of unseen eyes. Clarice noticed his tension but received only a vague response. To lighten the mood, Clarice cheerfully suggested dinner, masking any concern. Behind them, a hooded figure lingered in the shadows, silently watching their every step. In an open stone courtyard, Clarice stood before the towering goblin general under a bright sky. Mars evaluated her stats and believed she had grown strong enough to handle this enemy alone. Rather than rush in, Clarice used her agility to maintain distance, recalling her training. A quick draw of her bow followed. She aimed to impair the enemy's sight immediately. The arrow struck true, causing the goblin to stagger in pain and lose balance. Clarice maintained her distance, launching arrows repeatedly to weaken the goblin general piece by piece. After a decisive final shot, the enemy collapsed. She stood still, realizing the battle was over. A surge of joy rushed through her. She cheered, grateful to Mars for his guidance and proud of her progress. Later, she enjoyed a hearty sandwich, the reward for her effort. Beside her, Mars smiled as she happily ate, satisfaction clear on both their faces. Mars and Clarice shared a quiet meal, aware that their peaceful days might end if tomorrow's mission succeeded. During the picnic, Clarice noticed Mars lost in thought. He offered a vague excuse and smiled. The next day, they arrived at the labyrinth entrance, greeted by soldiers prepared for the operation. He sensed an intense gaze from the forest, confirming his earlier suspicions. Count Beetle assured him precautions were in place, urging him to stay focused on the mission. Mars and Clarice stepped into the labyrinth, alongside Count Beetle and the soldiers, marking the start of their mission. The knights clashed with monsters, holding the line. Once they cleared the area, the two advanced alone. After exchanging determined looks, they entered the deeper section as the final challenge loomed. Before the massive doors of the boss chamber, Mars volunteered to take the lead. Inside, the Goblin King awaited. Both sides prepared for the decisive battle ahead. Claris faced the Goblin King, recognizing the threat as far greater than previous enemies. Mars summoned a powerful tornado spell, striking the Goblin King with precision. With the enemy defeated, Claris realized they had successfully conquered the labyrinth. Elsewhere, Count Beetle's sinister plan was revealed, leaving the hero's victory shadowed by a looming threat. A violent coup begins as hired mercenaries flood the streets, overwhelming the Beetle Count's knights through preparation and numbers. Believing victory assured, the instigator claims control of the town, blinded by confidence and poor judgment. That certainty collapses when the mercenaries fail to respond. The Beetle Count stands restored beside loyal knights. Later, a blonde-haired boy named Mars and a blonde-haired girl named Claris return from a successful mission, marking a quiet return to stability. Mars and Claris walk calmly through the town, guided toward the manor after safely returning from their mission. The Beetle Count's manor comes into view, causing both to pause as tension lingers around the estate. Inside, knights and officials gather, relieved by their return while unease fills the room. The truth of the failed coup is revealed, exposing the instigator's actions and his complete loss of control. With the threat stopped early, order is restored, and the town avoids chaos through careful vigilance. Judgment is delivered as the mastermind behind the coup is exposed, stripped of status, and taken away under heavy guard. Relief fills the hall when Mars and Claris are welcomed back safely after overcoming the dungeon labyrinth. Recognition follows soon after, as both stand calmly while their achievements earn national praise. Rewards are granted to others involved, reshaping authority and responsibilities within the town. As matters conclude, quiet discussion replaces tension, signaling a stable future built on hard-won effort. After the long ordeal, Mars remains at the manor, accepting the offer to rest for the night. A lavish meal is prepared, and the atmosphere shifts from tension to cautious comfort around the table. As dinner continues, attention turns serious, signaling that important matters still remain unresolved. The Beetle Count formally acknowledges Mars, revealing his true name and origin within the Balkis kingdom. Realization strikes Mars as hidden truths surface, marking the beginning of deeper consequences beyond the coup. After careful discussion, the situation surrounding Mars is clarified, revealing limits caused by teleportation and hidden records. Understanding follows as arrangements begin, easing uncertainty while trust slowly forms between both sides. Night settles over the manor, marking the start of preparations and messages sent to ensure safety. Departure arrives with formal farewells, signaling the end of the stay and a step forward. Gratitude is shared as Mars and Claris stand acknowledged, their actions leaving a lasting impact on everyone involved. Mars prepares to part ways, carrying quiet gratitude from the time spent together at the manor. Claris turns toward her parents, acknowledging them calmly before making her decision. With a gentle smile, she steps forward, choosing to leave and follow a new path. Support surrounds Claris as her family watches her depart. Pride mixed with lingering concern, Mars accepts the moment, moving ahead with renewed resolve as their journey continues side by side. A carriage departs the town gates, leaving quiet farewells behind as Mars and Claris begin their journey together. The road proves calm and pleasant, with steady progress carrying them safely toward their destination. Arrival brings rest and simple joy, as shared moments strengthen trust and ease lingering tension. Peace breaks when urgency appears at the guild, drawing Mars's attention to unfolding trouble. A desperate request emerges, revealing fugitives bound for danger and setting their next challenge in motion. Inside, a bustling tavern, a merchant questioned the crowd, seeking details about a certain slave. He revealed the captive was an elven child. The room grew tense as one man raised the reward to 100 gold coins, desperate for help. Mars, a blonde-haired young man, exchanged glances with Claris, a calm blonde-haired woman. Their target lay deep within the Forbidden Forest, infamous for destroying entire B-rank parties. Although danger loomed, Mars remained firm. A concerned man warned them. Despite the warning, Mars and Claris refused to abandon the mission and left without a word. While riding the carriage, they admitted neither had ever seen an elf before, their curiosity growing. Mars checked the map and confirmed their path ran dangerously close to the forest. They began to suspect foul play, questioning why the route passed directly through such a deadly area. As the carriage turned a corner, Mars spotted a figure dashing ahead, raising immediate alarm. A frightened elven girl sprinted through the forest, panic clear on her face. Behind her slithered a monstrous snake, massive and fast, closing the distance with terrifying speed. As the creature gained ground, the girl neared the carriage, placing everyone in immediate danger. Mars leapt into action, ordering Claris to protect the child while he rushed to intercept the beast. Sword in hand, Mars struck first, and Claris followed with precision, engaging the snake in a fierce battle. The snake lunged at Mars, who narrowly avoided the strike while shielding the elf. It spewed a toxic mist, and Mars realized Windcutter had no effect against its scales. Using Heaven's Eye, he identified the beast as the Hell Snake, stronger than any foe he'd faced. Just then, Claris arrived. Weapon ready, prompting Mars to call out in relief. She warned him about the venom, and prepared to counterattack while Mars bought her time. Mars urged Claris to endure a little longer as the Hell Snake launched another venomous strike. Gathering magic in both hands, he prepared a powerful dual-element spell as the beast reared back. With danger closing in, Mars remained steady, chanting as the serpent lunged straight at him. A massive explosion erupted from the impact, forcing the creature to recoil in pain. Determined to end it, Mars charged forward with both fire and wind at full power. Mars unleashed his ultimate spell, Firestorm, engulfing the serpent in a pillar of blazing energy. As the flames died down, Claris praised him, revealing her barrier had shielded them from the blast. He asked about the elf, and Claris confirmed she'd secured the girl safely in the carriage. They found her inside, wary and afraid, questioning if they were there to return her. Tears fell as she refused, but Claris calmly promised they wouldn't send her back. Claris gently reassured the elf girl, who asked in disbelief if they truly wouldn't return her. Without hesitation, the girl leapt into Claris's arms, overwhelmed by relief as tears flowed. Holding her close, Claris softly asked her name, and the girl tearfully responded. They listened, as she revealed how she was deceived by a man claiming he'd reunite her with her mother. Moved by her story, Claris and Mars promised to help her find her real family. Grateful and tearful, Misha thanked Mars and Claris for saving her from captivity and offering hope. Their path shifted, now driven by a shared goal, reuniting Misha with her mother. After arriving by carriage, the group gathered near a clearing. Mars, the blonde-haired young man, stepped forward and used magic to shape a large basin from the ground. With a final spell, water rushed in. Mars turned to the group and declared the makeshift bath ready. The girls began to undress, preparing to enjoy the warmth and comfort the bath would bring. Inside the steaming water, they relaxed. One girl gently washed the other's hair while Mars waited nearby. Warm water surrounded the girls as they sat in silence, their bodies finally relaxing from travel. One of them encouraged open conversation. Mars, standing outside, reacted with shock after learning their age matched his. The elf girl stared at her friend in awe, surprised by the physical difference, despite being the same age. Curious, she leaned closer and shifted the topic to ask about her friend's family. Smiling proudly, the elf explained her mother was a B-rank adventurer, both strong and beautiful. Excited, the elf girl compared Claris's body to her mother's, making a bold remark while poking her chest. Laughter echoed from inside the bath as Mars stood silently outside, pretending not to hear. Once bathed, the girls changed. Claris lent her clothes, which the elf found adorable, despite being oversized. The group reached a lively, rough-looking city not meant for young travelers, filled with shady figures. Mars and his companions moved carefully through the crowded streets, wary of what might await ahead. While exploring the market, Mars was approached by a shady vendor, offering a sword for 10 gold coins. Despite the pressure, he firmly declined the overpriced deal, stating he lacked the money. Persistent, the seller tried again, but Mars turned away without hesitation and left. Later, Mars inquired about quests and lodging, only to be told there were no quests available. Thankfully, the receptionist pointed him to an inn across the street for the night. As night settled over the city, two men took interest in the young adventurer they had noticed earlier. Mars sensed movement behind him and grew cautious, realizing someone was following him through the alley. Soon, the same shady vendor appeared again, now backed by more people, blocking Mars's path. Even when pressured again, Mars politely declined, remaining calm despite the crowd. The situation escalated quickly as the men lunged toward him, surrounding him with brute force. Mars fought back with swift movements, knocking down one of the thugs while dodging attacks from others. Despite the advantage, his opponents remained confident, planning to subdue him before the auction began. Hearing their words, Mars grew tense and realized their intent wasn't just robbery, it was trafficking. They revealed Claris and Misha had already been captured, pushing Mars into a difficult decision. He dropped his sword and agreed to cooperate, demanding to be taken to his friends. Without resistance, Mars allowed the captor to place a thick bag over his head, concealing his vision. The group arrived at a grand estate, its exterior suggesting a place of wealth and secrecy, escorted between two guards. Mars stood silently as they praised his value to a man inside. The well-dressed figure behind the desk appeared pleased, speaking confidently about the auction's profits. Following orders, the guards led Mars away toward a secured room, meant for prized captives. He stepped into the room and firmly warned the guards not to lay a hand on the girls. Clarice and Misha looked relieved to see him safe, though concern filled their expressions. Inside the room, they spoke briefly, confirming that neither had been harmed during captivity. Overwhelmed, Misha clung to Clarice, fear still lingering from the ordeal. Mars reassured them gently, revealing he surrendered willingly to reach and protect them. With calm determination, Mars promised to save Misha and encouraged her to hold on a bit longer. She nodded with a soft smile, just as the guards barged in and barked an order to move. Under close escort, the trio walked silently through the hallway, heads lowered. Dozens of captives sat quietly as Mars, Clarice, and Misha were placed among them. Not far ahead, their weapons were in view. Mars knew they'd soon have one chance. The host announced the opening of the Haido Trading Company auction, promising a grand final showcase. Masked guests filled the hall, eagerly awaiting the first item to be revealed. A former noble was brought forward, trembling. As the bidding began at 1 coin, disappointed murmurs rose across the crowd, demanding to skip to the premium goods, to calm tensions. The host offered a swift apology and moved to unveil the highlights. As the curtains parted, Mars, Clarice, and Misha stood under the spotlight, facing a crowd of masked bidders. Descriptions of their traits and starting prices echoed across the room, turning them into objects of desire. Bidding erupted instantly, with offers stacking rapidly for each, and soon, combined offers soared past expectations. Overwhelmed, Misha froze, trembling from the intensity of the crowd's shouting and attention. Laughter followed, as bidders interpreted her fear as charm, further fueling their enthusiasm. A masked bidder raised the stakes with a bold offer of 10,000 gold coins for all 3 captives. Before the deal could finalize, another masked figure shouted to interrupt the auction's conclusion. A gang burst through the doors, led by a man claiming ownership over the elf girl, Misha. Furious, Jito accused Haido of theft and betrayal in front of the entire room. Without hesitation, his men charged forward under his command, ready to seize their prize by force. As Geto's men charged in, Haido quickly ordered his own guards to intercept the attackers. Tension erupted into chaos as both sides clashed. Weapons drawn and eyes locked in fury. Spotting the distraction, Mars recognized the perfect moment. Without hesitation, he signaled the others to prepare for escape. A masked attacker rushed forward, driving a blade toward a bald fighter who blocked the strike with force. Another man joined the clash, attempting to overwhelm him from the side. Nearby, a young mage cast ice projectiles across the hall. Shards scattered over the tiles as an opponent tried to shield himself from the attack. Fighting erupted across the room, overturning tables and forcing onlookers back. Multiple combatants exchanged blows while panic spread among the crowd. Close to the stage, weapons swung in wide arcs. The disturbance intensified, drawing attention away from certain figures. Masked men seized the distraction and slipped through the chaos, escaping unnoticed. Mars, the blonde-haired youth, waited beside the curtain while a guard stepped forward with his sword. Power gathered in Mars's palm and struck the guard's face, forcing him backward. The ropes binding the captives loosened, throwing the attackers into confusion. Sharp pain burned through Mars's eyes as he focused on a fallen weapon. Determination drove him to reach for the sword despite the strain. Masked men noticed the children escaping and shouted in alarm. Mars guided them calmly, positioning himself between them and danger. Meanwhile, the fierce duel onstage continued as orders to capture them rang out. Using the distraction, Mars pushed the escape forward. The bald fighter sprinted away, leaving the masked attacker behind and opening space in the fight. A large man received a brutal slash and staggered backward. Another warrior advanced immediately, refusing to waste the chance. Thrown down with force, the masked attacker was pinned to the floor. Nearby, a mage gripped his staff while a victim remained unconscious under sleep magic. Bodies dropped across the hall, proving the battle had shifted in moments. Their leader could only watch as his fighters failed one after another. Seeing the situation collapse, the leader retreated and left his men behind. A small bag was handed over quickly as orders were given to take care of it. Across the hall, a cloaked fighter faced Mars's group and prepared to respond to their request. Holding his massive weapon, the warrior warned that he would not attack if they left immediately. A sharp threat followed, demanding a decision within seconds. The pressure made the situation more dangerous for Mars and the others. Fear spread among the masked men as they judged the warrior's strength. A command was shouted, and the group formed into a battle position. With weapons ready, they prepared to confront the cloaked enemy. The mage prepared a spell while 2 fighters rushed forward to restrict the cloaked warrior. Others stayed behind to protect anyone left vulnerable. Both attackers charged at once, relying on speed to corner their target. The cloaked warrior remained steady and watched their movement. A sharp swing forced them to halt and scatter. The warrior kept a small bag in hand, showing he was still in control. Panic rose as their strategy failed, and their formation collapsed. Fear appeared when they realized the enemy had predicted their approach. The cloaked warrior stepped in with his heavy weapon raised, trapping the 2 fighters. One fighter lifted his weapon to guard while his partner prepared the strike. Tension showed in their faces as they relied on coordination. From opposite sides, the 2 rushed forward to corner the cloaked warrior. Suddenly, a crushing counterattack broke through their assault and hurled them backward. Steel slipped from their hands as their bodies were thrown aside. Silence followed when both crashed onto the floor without resistance. Nearby observers stiffened, understanding their unit had fallen at once. Advancing calmly, the cloaked warrior raised his heavy weapon again and closed the distance toward the final remaining target. A massive strike slammed into the floor and shattered the tiles. The force spread outward, leaving the area destroyed. Terror appeared on the criminals' faces as they stared at the cloaked warrior. Mars watched from a distance, realizing the threat was still active. Standing over the wreckage, the warrior confirmed the mission was complete. A masked man lay defeated, unable to rise. Attention shifted toward the stage as the warrior decided to take Mars back. Mars stiffened after sensing the danger closing in. Heavy steps carried the cloaked enemy closer to Mars. Pressure filled the hall as Mars prepared for what came next. The cloaked warrior warned Mars to leave while he still could. Mars refused to retreat and steadied his sword despite the pressure. Anger flashed across the warrior's face as Mars stood his ground. Sweat ran down Mars's cheek, yet his resolve did not break. A strange distortion blurred Mars's vision as the warrior stepped closer. Confusion crossed his expression when the distance between them felt uncertain. Mars swung his blade, but the warrior's massive arm intercepted the strike. For a moment, an afterimage overlapped the warrior's body. Realization dawned on Mars as he sensed an unusual ability at work. Mars sensed a brief vision of the future and shifted aside before the warrior's strike reached him. Surprise flickered across the cloaked man's face after Mars avoided his attack twice. Suspicion replaced confidence as he studied the boy. Tension tightened around Mars's eyes while he steadied his sword. The strange ability activated again, sharpening his perception. Determination hardened the warrior's expression as he refused to release his target. Mars recognized the overwhelming difference in their abilities. Without warning, the warrior lunged forward at extreme speed. Mars twisted away just in time. Understanding the fight had turned lethal, Mars realized he could not evade the incoming blow and raised his sword to guard. The cloaked warrior's massive strike descended with overwhelming force. Steel collided as Mars blocked from below, straining under the weight behind the attack. Shock ran through Mars's arms when the heavy weapon forced him backward. Tiles cracked beneath his feet as he struggled to hold his ground. Using sharp footwork, Mars twisted aside and countered in the same motion. The warrior adjusted instantly, preventing a clean hit. Speed and precision defined Mars's movements as he slipped past another swing. The cloaked fighter watched closely, recognizing the boy's remarkable talent. The cloaked warrior advised Mars to leave, claiming his talent was too valuable to waste. Mars refused to step back. Anger surfaced as Mars questioned why someone so strong would engage in slave trading. Doubt lingered while he searched for a solution. Resolve hardened when he condemned the abduction of helpless children. The warrior listened without changing his expression. Attention shifted to the stage where a masked man confronted the captives. A girl moved to shield the younger child. He thrust his hand forward and released a sharp wind attack. The force tore through obstacles and drove toward the enemy. Mars raised his palm and released a force that split the space near the stage. The attack blocked the masked man and protected the children. Realization hit the cloaked warrior as he understood the situation had been misunderstood. Mars stayed tense, ready for another strike. Outside the building, a cloaked figure watched the large hall from a distance. Her calm stance suggested she had been following the incident. The elf woman revealed herself as Sasha, Misha's mother, prepared to step in. Inside the quiet hall, a large warrior questioned the small boy after witnessing his strange sword movement. The child calmly introduced himself as Mars. Nearby, a worried servant hurried to report the situation, asking for the elf child to be brought forward. The servant suddenly lost control of his body and collapsed hard onto the floor. Panic spread as his face twisted in shock. A scream echoed through the room as another man reacted violently, his body shaking uncontrollably. The suited man staggered away in fear, but sharp strikes hit him from behind. Mars turned quickly, sensing danger, while the warrior stepped forward, ready to act. A sudden strike was stopped when the huge warrior raised his weapon in time. Mars flinched as the impact rang through the hall. Behind the attacker, an elf woman appeared and restrained him without effort. Her cold gaze made it clear the boy was not the enemy. After the threat ended, she explained the Lister National Academy, a place where powerful fighters gathered. Mars listened carefully as the meaning sank in. Without hesitation, the warrior insisted that Mars must attend. As she walked away, a small child rushed toward her, while her firm steps showed she was already prepared. Tears streamed down the young girl's face as she recognized her mother. Across from her, the elf woman froze in disbelief before emotion overcame her. Without hesitation, the child ran forward with open arms. The elf knelt and embraced her tightly, relief washing over her expression. Gentle hands stroked the girl's hair while she cried against her mother's chest. The long separation ended in a firm, reassuring hold. Holding her daughter securely, the elf vowed to protect her from further hardship. Nearby, Mars quietly watched the reunion unfold later. Gratitude was expressed toward Mars for his efforts. A calm warmth settled over the group as tension finally faded. After the chaos ended, Sasha explained everything that had happened. She held her daughter close while speaking to the others, giving credit to Mars and the warrior for saving her. Once the discussion ended, the group left the damaged area behind. A large meal was prepared and placed on the table for everyone. Relief filled the room as they ate freely, enjoying a rare, peaceful moment. Later, the conversation turned serious as the city's dark nature was revealed. Criminal groups controlled the streets, making it unsafe for anyone vulnerable. Sasha warned that the city was especially dangerous for children alone. On the quiet street, Sasha offered a small pouch as a token of gratitude for the help given in rescuing Misha. Mars accepted politely, assuring her it was unnecessary. Appreciation was shared sincerely as both sides acknowledged the bond formed through hardship. Soon after, farewells were exchanged with gentle smiles. Sasha and Misha waved before departing down the road together. Their carriage passed through the city gates and continued across open land toward a distant town. Later, Mars and his companion arrived at an inn, where they calmly requested 2 rooms to rest for the night. At the inn counter, Clarice suggested that 1 room would be enough for the night. Mars reacted with surprise, but she remained calm and practical. Inside the room, 2 separate beds were prepared, easing the awkward tension. Both of them sat quietly, unsure how to act. Embarrassment showed on their faces as they avoided eye contact. The silence between them felt heavier than expected. To break the tension, they decided to take turns bathing. Polite gestures were exchanged as each tried to appear composed. Laughter finally replaced the awkward mood. The shared moment helped them relax, making the night feel less uncomfortable. In the bath, Clarice tried to justify sharing a room, convincing herself it was safer and more practical. Embarrassment still colored her thoughts as she remembered being alone with Mars. While soaking in the water, her mind wandered toward him. At the same time, Mars rested in the room, unaware of her growing feelings. Suddenly, a crystal in Mars's hand began to glow brightly. Realization struck him that his family was nearby. Without hesitation, he rushed to inform Clarice before stepping outside. Surprise spread across her face as he left abruptly. Mars hurried through the street, wondering who had come. Excitement filled him as he moved toward the city gate. He stepped into the street and immediately recognized familiar figures waiting nearby. Before Mars could react further, both rushed forward. His father pulled him into a strong embrace, while his brother joined tightly, relieved to see him safe. After calming down, introductions were made between Clarice and Mars's family. They explained they had heard about her actions through Lord Beetle. Later, everyone gathered inside the inn for a meal. Food was served as they prepared to discuss what had happened. The tense mood faded as they ate together. Comfort returned to Mars as he shared the table with his family again. During the meal, Mars recounted his battles in the forest, the encounter with the serpent, and the events surrounding Misha and the auction. Pride showed clearly on his father's face as he praised Mars's courage. His brother listened with admiration, impressed by everything that had happened. After finishing their food, his father reminded them there was still unfinished business. Outside, a carriage waited near the inn. Instead of returning immediately, the children showed excitement at continuing the trip. Energy filled the group as preparations were made. Soon, they traveled toward the castle gates. Guards stood watch as the carriage approached its destination. Across a stone bridge, the carriage rolled forward while storm clouds gathered over a distant castle. Lightning cracked in the sky, giving the land an uneasy feeling. Inside the wagon, Mars and the others remained watchful, as they passed a collapsed figure near the road. No one stopped, and the journey continued without delay. Later on, the horse grew restless, and Clara stepped in to calm it down. Evening settled as the wagon kept moving through the open fields. By the next day, the group reached a fortified gate and entered a crowded town. Buildings and streets quickly surrounded them. At last, the carriage slowed to a stop. Their destination had finally been reached. At the front of the house, Mars's mother covered her mouth in shock as she recognized him. His little sister stood beside her, trembling with excitement. Without waiting, the girl sprinted across the yard toward Mars. Clarice remained behind him, quietly watching the reunion. Relief broke through as Mars returned to his mother's arms. Her tight embrace showed how long she had worried. Soon after, the sister clung happily to her older brother. The tension of the journey faded completely. Aunt's calm returned. Mars's mother introduced herself to Clarice. A new connection began forming. Inside the house, Clarice politely introduced herself to Mars's mother. Respect was shown as both bowed slightly to one another. Soon after, the family gathered together near the table. Preparations were made as they stood close, ready to welcome the new guest properly. Moments later, warm greetings filled the room, while cups were raised in celebration. Gratitude and relief were shared as Mars and Clarice felt accepted by the family. Maria was welcomed warmly into the household, as the family expressed gratitude and promised to support her. A gentle reassurance followed, encouraging her to rely on them whenever needed. Relief showed on her face, and comfort slowly replaced her earlier uncertainty. Rena quickly grew attached and sought closeness, asking for care like a devoted younger sister. Daily life turned peaceful as Rena stayed constantly by Clarice's side. Shared baths, walks, and quiet nights created steady affection within the household. Meanwhile, Ike supported his father's duties and concentrated seriously on studying. After 1 month passed, the family settled into a stable rhythm. A formal request arrived from Margrave Carmel to subdue monsters within the Almeria dungeon. Mars accepted the assignment and prepared to travel with his companions. After arriving in Almeria, they entered the guild and presented equipment gained from dungeon treasure chests. Nearby adventurers watched them with doubt. A muscular man stepped forward and questioned the origin of the gear. Mars remained calm and insisted it was earned through ability. Soon, a public challenge was issued in the town square. Townspeople gathered as both raised their swords. Within moments, Mars struck cleanly and knocked the man onto the stone ground. The crowd fell silent at the outcome. Mars encountered a noble official in the town square, who recognized him and asked about his family. He explained that he had come on behalf of his father to handle the dungeon culling. Trust was placed upon him, and the responsibility was accepted without hesitation. Soon after, Mars and his companions stood before the massive dungeon gates. The towering stone entrance signaled the beginning of their task. Inside the corridor, silver birds suddenly emerged from the darkness. Their wings filled the air as they rushed forward in formation. Weapons were raised immediately while Mars assessed the threat. Recognizing the creature's danger level, the group prepared carefully for battle. Arrows flew swiftly as Clarice targeted the silver birds, while Mars evaded their sharp dives and maintained his stance. The creatures were eliminated one after another. Silence followed the clash, revealing an enormous mound of magic stones covering the dungeon floor. Transporting such a quantity immediately became a serious concern. Recognizing the difficulty, Mars chose to withdraw temporarily and consult his father about handling the unexpected reward. Careful steps guided them out. Inside the estate, a sudden proposal suggested purchasing slaves to manage the heavy load. The solution sounded blunt and practical. Shock spread across their faces as they processed the suggestion and considered its implications. Mars and his companions visited a large facility to find someone strong enough to carry the magic stones. An official suggested selecting a beastman slave for the task. Soon after, they were guided deeper into the building by a staff member. The atmosphere felt controlled and formal. Inside, multiple floors surrounded a vast open hall, filled with confined beastmen. Curious and wary eyes watched the newcomers from above. Explanations followed about how beastmen only obey those stronger than themselves. Caution spread as several figures observed Mars carefully. Finally, they stopped before a larger isolated room. The size of the chamber hinted that someone important was kept within. Within the isolated chamber sat a powerful beastman, introduced as the former Duke Selen, once a leading figure among his kind. History revealed that he refused to serve anyone weaker than himself, which led to his downfall. Observing carefully, Mars activated his unique perception ability to evaluate the beastman's true strength and condition. The tension in the room increased. Without warning, a violent force burst outward, shattering the wall and sending debris across the chamber floor. Shock spread instantly. Reacting on instinct, Mars reached forward as the others stumbled back. The fallen Duke remained standing, amid the dust and broken stone. A violent shockwave hurled Mars across the chamber as the former Duke advanced with overwhelming speed. Mid-air, Mars activated his perception ability and recognized the incoming strike. Massive force pressed toward him before he could regain balance. Realizing escape was impossible, he formed a barrier while the Duke closed the distance in a single step. Behind him, Claris rushed forward in alarm as the Duke shattered the defense and continued his assault. The situation threatened everyone present. Lightning burst from Mars at the final instant, meeting the Duke's punch head. Power clashed violently as both remained locked in place. Electric energy flickered across Mars's face as the others stared in shock at the clash's aftermath. Debris still scattered across the broken chamber. Standing firm, the former Duke faced Mars without retreat. The distance between them remained tense and unresolved. Faint sparks continued to crackle around the Duke's arm, revealing the lingering impact of lightning magic. Mars steadied his breathing while watching carefully. Confusion pushed Mars to question the sudden assault and the reason behind such aggression. His posture remained guarded. Calmly, the Duke explained that the attack had been a test of strength. Realization dawned as Mars understood the deliberate provocation. Bowing deeply, Mars apologized, while the former Duke examined him and noticed the unusual magic eye. After being asked, Mars introduced himself properly. The Duke turned away, silently judging his character. Curiosity led Mars to request another appraisal. Nearby witnesses watched closely as the Duke accepted without hesitation. The revealed status showed overwhelming strength and endurance far beyond normal limits. Shock spread as Mars understood the danger. Mars explained they needed a slave to transport magic stones. The Duke responded coldly, as if the matter was already decided. Turning away, the former Duke declared he would never serve anyone weaker than himself, dismissing Mars and the others without hesitation. Standing alone in the hall, Mars faced the roaring crowd of beastmen watching from above. Their reactions carried weight. Gradually, approval replaced doubt, as several beastmen acknowledged Mars's strength and changed their stance toward him. Encouraged by the shift, Mars requested permission to evaluate them. Agreement followed from those observing his resolve. Outside the facility, the group confirmed their selections. Satisfaction settled in as their search finally reached a decision. Mars met the selected beastmen, including the Black Wolf tribe's 3 brothers, who stood proudly as their group was introduced. 2 women also stepped forward and shared their names, showing polite respect toward their new master and companions. With preparations complete, the group gathered and began moving together under supervision, ready to leave the facility. A house had already been rented for them, giving everyone a place to stay while the mission continued. After entering the home, the first priority became sharing a meal. The large table filled quickly as the new members joined the others. A young girl respectfully asks Lord Zeke to join them at the dining table. Surprise spreads among the servants, unsure whether such familiarity is permitted within noble customs. Permission is granted for the day, easing the tension. Shortly after, she firmly corrects the group's rude behavior, reminding them to maintain proper manners before the Lord. With a calm expression, the young master agrees and proposes that decisions be made starting tomorrow. Gathered around the table, the household listens as he addresses the 5 slaves regarding the earlier contract and future arrangements. A serious condition follows, declaring they must not harm Elguzia and will relocate there within 3 years. Lord Ike formally appoints Ray and Misa as household servants, assigning them clear responsibilities. At the same time, he entrusts the Black 3 Wolf Stars with future control of the Elguzia dungeon after relocation. Following the meal, room assignments are carefully organized within the large residence. As evening settles, Ike declares that true work will begin the next day. The silent building reflects the weight of his expectations and authority. Soon afterward, the 3 warriors obtain E-rank adventurer status. Their official recognition marks the beginning of structured training and greater responsibility. Afterward, Ike explains that roles will be determined once their abilities are fully evaluated. Inside the dungeon corridor, Ike orders the 3 warriors to eliminate the nearby monsters before advancing further. Shadows stretch along the stone walls as they prepare for combat. Several rock lizards emerge, displaying balanced physical abilities. The trio assesses their own strength and steps forward confidently, despite the creature's sharp claws. Without hesitation, they charge simultaneously, coordinating their movements to overwhelm the enemies from different directions. Speed and force combine in a direct assault. Claws clash against fists as the lizards retaliate. The fighters maintain formation, pressing their attack within the enclosed chamber. Heavy strikes land decisively, crushing the monsters and ending the battle swiftly inside the dungeon. A warrior tackles a rock lizard and smashes its head against the ground, ending it with raw strength. Momentum continues as another fighter leaps high and drives his heel down, cracking the stone floor on impact. Nearby, their companion steps forward calmly and strikes his opponent without hesitation. Dust rises while a powerful kick sends debris outward and forces the remaining creature back. Within moments, the last lizard collapses under repeated blows, leaving the chamber secured. After the battle, one warrior rubs his aching back, while another stands quietly, examining his injured leg in the dim corridor, despite their wounds. The trio gathers proudly and declares the dungeon monsters completely defeated. Confidence returns as they await evaluation. Soon they approach Lord Ike and request acknowledgement for their performance. He responds calmly, indicating their efforts are still insufficient. Confusion spreads across their faces as they question his judgment. Doubt replaces their earlier pride. Ike then orders immediate treatment for the 3 fighters before giving further explanation. After receiving treatment, the 3 warriors recover quickly and notice their wounds closing faster than expected. Shock spreads as they realize the healing is not normal. Questions follow, and the group learns the healer is only 8 years old. The warriors stare in disbelief at such rare talent. Awkward tension rises when attention turns toward her appearance, causing discomfort and embarrassment among the group. Order is restored as apologies are made, and Ike resumes the evaluation, preparing to explain their failure. To demonstrate properly, Ike steps forward with his spear and confronts another monster, showing the correct way to fight. Ike begins the demonstration by casting fire magic, forcing the monster to react and exposing its movement. Control over the battlefield becomes clear immediately. Using the opening, he charges in and strikes with his spear, landing clean hits while avoiding counterattacks. His movements remain steady and efficient. Afterward, Ike questions the group and shows how proper timing creates a decisive advantage. The monsters are defeated without unnecessary risk. The warriors attempt to explain their limits, but Ike insists they must think during combat instead of relying on strength alone. He then explains that stamina management is essential for dungeon survival, warning that careless fighting leads to injury and failure. Following Ike's advice, the 3 warriors agree to fight as a coordinated team instead of acting individually. Determination replaces their earlier frustration. Soon after, a grizzly bear emerges inside the dungeon, forcing them to confront a stronger opponent together. They advance cautiously. Instead of attacking recklessly, they focus on limiting the bear's strikes and restricting its movements. Their coordination begins to show improvement. At the right moment, one leaps high while another creates an opening, targeting the monster's breathing and balance simultaneously. When the bear finally collapses, the trio stands united before Ike, awaiting judgment with renewed confidence. The group decides to inspect only the 2nd floor before returning, expecting a routine check without further danger. Stone corridors stretch quietly ahead. Suddenly, everyone freezes as an overwhelming sight appears before them. Shock spreads across their faces. Countless giant ants swarm over the area, covering the walls and surrounding a fallen beast near the entrance. The floor crawls with movement. Realizing the numbers are far too great, they understand this threat was never reported on this level before. Concern replaces curiosity. Recognizing the risk, Ike orders a retreat and decides they must report the abnormal situation to the guild immediately. The group quickly returns to the guild and requests an urgent meeting with Ralph. They are brought inside without delay. A formal introduction follows. As the Marquis of Carmel is present to hear the situation, Ralph prepares to listen seriously. Ike reports that numerous ant monsters have appeared on the 2nd floor of the labyrinth. The officials react with alarm after realizing they may be killer ants. Concern grows as they discuss how quickly the labyrinth could become overrun if the ants continue multiplying. The room becomes tense. After a moment of silence, Ralph asks what action Ike would take. Everyone watches closely, waiting for his answer. Ike begins outlining his strategy, stating that if the decision were his, immediate coordinated action would be necessary. He proposes summoning 3 C-rank parties from Elgusia to reinforce the labyrinth before the situation spreads further. Additionally, he suggests gathering experienced adventurers at the 1st floor entrance while persuading skilled beastmen slaves to assist in containment. Inside the guild room, the officials listen carefully as Ike explains the importance of organized preparation rather than panic. He concludes that cooperation between guild forces and Sir Burns is absolutely essential to prevent the labyrinth from being overwhelmed. After hearing Ike's proposal, the officials conclude that the situation will require a full-scale battle to contain the spreading threat. That night, preparations begin, as messages are sent to Viscount Bryant, and the strategy is formally approved for immediate execution. The following day, guild leaders address a gathered crowd of adventurers and announce the operation will start without delay. Soon, the summoned C-rank parties arrive, including Brown Shield and Blue Fang, ready to reinforce the labyrinth. Red Wing joins shortly after, completing the force, while questions arise regarding the involvement of the Beastmen in the coming conflict. The Beastmen confirm their willingness to cooperate in the coming operation, yet communication with Burns remains impossible. Because Burns only acknowledges a few individuals, the officials request that Ike personally persuade him to support the strategy. Pressure shifts onto him. Later, Ike meets Burns directly and faces his imposing presence. Despite the tension, he stands firm, determined to secure cooperation for the upcoming battle. Mars stood before a towering building as a blonde-haired youth formally requested his escort to the Almeria labyrinth, seeking his strength for the dangerous expedition. Calmly, Mars revealed his indifference toward the town's fate, stating he would simply depart if everyone perished during the chaos. Hearing the offer of the Margrave of Carmel's reward, the youth proposed granting any wish in exchange for participation. Interest shifted when Mars demanded the holy magic user Flora as his sole condition for involvement. Faced with difficulty, the youth hesitated, yet Mars firmly insisted that bringing Flora would secure his power. Mars listened as the blonde youth questioned his true purpose for requesting Flora's presence, sensing that the demand carried personal meaning. With a serious expression, Mars revealed he needed Flora to remove Ellie's curse, showing that his request was not related to the labyrinth mission. Although the youth seemed uncertain, Mars explained he had heard holy magic users could lift curses, and he intended to test that rumor. Pressure grew when Mars decided Flora would be forced to continue trying until success, shocking the youth with his harsh determination. After realizing Mars would not change his mind, the youth agreed to stay silent and promised to search for Flora and bring her to him. Concern arose as the youth warned that if the town disappeared, Sir Burns' location would remain unknown, complicating their plans before finding Flora. After brief silence, Mars agreed to remain outside the labyrinth and defend the town, insisting Ellie stay protected within his sight. Grateful yet determined, the youth prepared himself, activating a wind cloak spell while enhancing his physical strength for safety. Memories of sparring with Sir Burns resurfaced, guiding his movements as he steadied his breathing and focused his power. Energy surged through his body as monsters charged forward, and he realized he had finally grasped the strength he sought. Power burst outward as the youth unleashed a wide attack, wiping out the surrounding enemies in an instant. Excitement rose when he realized his body could strike automatically, even as his weapon crashed through obstacles ahead. Flora arrived and checked on Mars, while he analyzed the skill's cost and considered ways to reduce his magic consumption. Sudden danger approached, forcing Flora to react as a violent blast rushed toward them without warning. After the impact ended, both stood stunned, unsure what had caused the attack or what threat remained nearby. Inside the labyrinth corridor, Mars admitted he had been training alone, attempting to control the dangerous magic that once injured Sir Burns. Flora listened carefully as he wondered whether she could recognize the strange sensation surrounding that power. Realization struck them simultaneously, linking the feeling to the incident at the convenience store before their reincarnation. After confirming he was unharmed, Flora expressed concern about him exploring alone and wished to accompany him inside the labyrinth, using a newly found bracelet that could alter displayed abilities. Flora prepared to conceal her identity as a holy magic user. Wearing matching bracelets, Mars and Flora smiled at each other, united by their secret and ready to face the coming battle together. On the day of the extermination operation, groups of adventurers gathered before the labyrinth entrance, preparing themselves for the dangerous mission ahead. From above, Mars observed the assembled forces while seasoned fighters stepped forward to lead the assault against the monsters inside. As the gates opened, swarms of giant insects poured out, forcing Mars and his ally to brace themselves for immediate combat. Flames erupted across the battlefield as powerful fire spells rained down, burning the creatures and turning the chaotic charge into a controlled counterattack. Inside the labyrinth stairs, swarms of insects poured downward while adventurers retreated quickly to avoid being overwhelmed. Massive killer ants filled the corridor, their numbers and sharp mandibles revealing the scale of the threat, advancing toward the surface. From the dark tunnel, an even greater wave surged outward, spreading across the courtyard and alarming the waiting forces. Stepping forward calmly, the young mage unleashed a powerful tornado that tore through the charging ants and scattered them violently. Seizing the opening, frontline fighters rushed in with blades raised, cutting down the remaining creatures before they could regroup. Warriors pushed forward through the fallen insects, while the tornado continued tearing through the battlefield, clearing space for the advance. Suddenly, a massive ant appeared in the ruined corridor, causing the surrounding adventurers to freeze as its presence dominated the area. Mars quickly identified it as a mother ant, recognizing its greater strength and realizing the danger was far beyond the smaller swarm. Realizing his tornado spell could not bring it down, Mars shifted tactics and aimed for a direct strike to weaken its body. After attacking, Mars glanced back and noticed Flora nearby, confirming she had followed into the battle zone. An adventurer signaled confidently while striking down another giant ant, showing the front line had regained control of the chaotic corridor. Soon, the swarm thinned, and the gathered fighters stood over piles of defeated insects, catching their breath after the intense clash. To prevent further advances, two mages erected ice and earth walls, sealing the tunnel and stabilizing the battlefield. With the immediate threat contained, leaders allowed the group to pause briefly and recover their strength. Flames were set to burn the remains while scouts observed the sealed entrance, ensuring no additional creatures emerged. After the battle, Mars suggested resting since more enemies were expected, and Flora agreed as they stepped aside from the others. Exhaustion soon overcame them, and both quietly fell asleep against the stone wall, while the area remained under watch. A faint presence approached, causing Mars to stir slightly while Flora continued leaning against him. Two familiar figures arrived, observing the pair with gentle expressions as they stood nearby. Seeing Mars safe and active in the operation, his mother felt deep relief, reassured by his steady growth and strength. Mars woke up to find his father nearby, who praised him proudly while Mars laughed awkwardly at the attention. A report soon arrived that the Earth wall would likely collapse within 30 minutes, forcing everyone to prepare for another attack. While soldiers watched the ants gather outside, Mars's mother joked about the sleeping girl beside him, teasing him without hiding her amusement. Before leaving, she reminded Mars to visit again once Clarice woke, still treating the situation lightly despite the danger. Then Mars gently checked Clarice's condition, relieved she was safe, even as the next battle drew closer. Clarice suddenly woke with a flushed face, realizing she had been sleeping close to Mars and feeling embarrassed by the situation. Memories of waking up while someone watched her returned, making her panic as she regretted not reacting sooner. Mars stayed calm and quietly accepted her reaction, finding the awkward moment harmless compared to the danger outside. Before Clarice could recover, the group returned to the wall area, readying themselves for the next wave of enemies. Dark shapes emerged through the broken entrance, and the swarm of ants advanced again, forcing everyone to brace for battle. A group of adventurers entered the dungeon and discovered a guard ant melting the wall with acid. Several magic circles appeared on the ground as the team prepared their formation. Mars stayed behind a taller ally, ready to support safely. The guard ant charged forward and sprayed acid across the floor. Mars ordered the group to avoid the front line and attack from a distance. Multiple fighters released magic and ranged attacks toward the monster. A powerful strike shook the dungeon, sending debris flying through the air. More guard ants emerged from the shadows, forcing the group to prepare for a longer battle. The dungeon wall shattered as a massive shadow forced its way inside. Rubble scattered across the floor while smaller ants gathered beneath the towering figure. From the darkness, a queen ant emerged and revealed overwhelming strength far beyond the previous monsters. Mars sensed the danger immediately and understood their position had worsened. Seeing the enemy's power, the group began to fall back across the wide chamber. Mars remained calm, while others retreated toward safety. A plan formed in his mind as he chose to stay behind. Nearby, a young ally refused to withdraw and stood close to him. Mars warned his ally to stay calm as countless ants poured into the chamber. The retreating party moved farther away, leaving the two behind near the front. A violent tornado spell slammed into the queen ant, scattering debris across the dungeon floor. Suddenly, the queen released a wide acid breath that swept across the ground. Mars and his ally dodged quickly, barely escaping the corrosive spray. While the ants surged forward, Mars stepped ahead and gathered lightning energy into his hand. With the swarm closing in, Mars released the lightning toward the enemy. The glowing attack flew straight into the mass of ants, aiming to break their advance. Mars released his condensed lightning, and a massive explosion engulfed the queen ant. When the light faded, the queen's body was pinned against the wall, surrounded by scorch marks. Mars observed carefully to confirm the attack's effect. Electricity continued to surge across the queen ant's body, locking its limbs in place. The creature twitched but could no longer move freely. Seeing the paralysis take hold, Mars assessed the cost of his spell and understood he could not repeat it often. His ally watched with astonishment. With the queen immobilized, Mars calmly extended his hand toward the remaining ants. The swarm began to falter, signaling the battle's turning point. Mars listened carefully at the dungeon entrance and realized the ants were still moving in the darkness. Deciding not to risk further danger, he chose to withdraw with his companion. They exited the chamber and returned safely to the surface, leaving the remaining monsters behind. After reporting the queen ant's defeat, the group received recognition for their success. Soon afterward, they headed to a nearby inn to rest. Inside the bathhouse, members of the party relaxed and washed away the fatigue from battle. Later, Mars lay down in his room, reflecting on the fight. Exhaustion finally overtook him as he drifted into sleep. Mars was shaken awake with urgent news that the ants had broken through the labyrinth door. Alarm spread quickly as the threat moved toward the town. Moments later, he learned the queen ant had also appeared outside. Without hesitation, Mars and others rushed into the streets. Beyond the walls, a swarm gathered while the queen stood at the center. A seasoned warrior stepped forward and launched a powerful strike. The attack slammed into the queen's head, forcing it backward. Dust and debris scattered from the impact. Continuing his assault, the warrior drove another heavy blow into the monster. The battle for the town had begun. A seasoned warrior stepped forward and declared he would advance alone toward the queen ant. His earlier strike had already proven his strength as the monster lay damaged before him. Above the battlefield, Mars leapt into the swarm and cut through the surrounding ants with swift sword movements. Another ally moved to support the warrior below. The warrior watched the sweeping attacks and acknowledged the impressive sword technique. Mars admitted he could handle a blade but focused mainly on magic. The warrior regarded him with surprise at the unexpected skill. Laughter broke the tension as reinforcements finally arrived at the scene. Together they prepared to finish the remaining ants around the queen. From the shattered wall, the queen ant stepped forward again, followed by a surge of smaller ants. Quickly, roles were divided as Mars prepared to handle the swarm, and the warrior focused on the queen. Both fighters rushed ahead to meet the enemy before it reached the town. Ants continued pouring in behind their leader. A crushing strike from the warrior forced the queen backward. At the same time, Mars cut down several smaller ants with precise swings. Soon other adventurers joined the clash and pushed against the swarm. The defenders gradually stabilized the battlefield. Across the battlefield, fallen ants covered the ground while a few still struggled to advance. Sir Burns, breathing heavily, continued swinging his weapon despite visible exhaustion. Sweat ran down his face as he forced another powerful strike into a remaining enemy. After the clash eased, Sir Burns turned toward the other adventurers and called out to them. Mars approached from behind, observing his condition carefully. Sensing the strain on the warrior's body, Mars instructed the others to provide support. From behind, Sir Burns stood with tense shoulders, still determined to fight. Mars watched silently, aware the warrior was pushing himself beyond safe limits. Mars approached Sir Burns and requested permission to act. After a brief decision, approval was granted, allowing Mars to move forward with his plan. Using holy magic, Mars placed his hand against Sir Burns and restored his strength. As the healing finished, Sir Burns realized Mars had hidden abilities and felt relieved that someone reliable was supporting the fight. The swarm continued without slowing, forcing Sir Burns back into combat. Nearby fighters struggled as the ants kept coming from every direction. Soon, exhaustion spread through the defenders, and tension rose across the field. Mars watched the situation worsen, realizing the battle might not end quickly. A powerful presence emerged as the queen ant revealed a named form with overwhelming strength. Sir Burns stepped forward again and ordered Mars to assist the other fighters. Despite the danger, he prepared himself to confront the enhanced queen alone. Answering immediately, Mars dashed across the battlefield to support the struggling adventurers. Behind him, Sir Burns activated a hidden power and transformed into a beast king. His body changed as claws extended, and his frame grew more imposing. Intense energy gathered around him. While he fixed his gaze on the enemy, without hesitation, the Beast King charged into the swarm and struck with crushing force. Sir Burns, transformed as the Beast King, charged the named Queen Ant. The monster resisted, while fallen ants littered the battlefield. A furious warrior charged forward, only to see a black masked figure suddenly appear in his path. Silent and unmoving, the strange enemy stared back while the attacker gathered more strength. A massive block was shoved between them, cutting off the assault and forcing the warrior to adjust in midair. Breaking through the obstacle, the warrior burst ahead again and aimed directly for the figure. The hit landed with heavy force, yet the masked enemy endured and shifted away as the impact tore through the ground. The warrior's kick shattered the massive structure, sending fragments flying as the black figure was pushed back across the field. Despite the damage, the enemy's body quickly restored itself, forcing the warrior to pause and reassess the situation. Suddenly, the creature dropped low and struck the ground, causing a violent tremor to spread outward. From the center of the impact, sand erupted upward and formed a rising mass beneath the black figure. Far away, several onlookers stared in alarm as the distant shockwave rolled toward them across the desert. As the sandstorm spread, Several mages hurried to raise barriers of earth and ice to shield the crowd from the rushing wind. Nearby, the warrior advanced toward the monster again, while civilians panicked and fled through the ruined area. Across the battlefield, thick sand covered the ground and slowed movement, making every step heavier and harder to control. Power surged through the warrior's body as his form shifted, increasing his strength while leaving his defense weakened. In the distance, the enemy remained seated and continued regenerating, forcing the warrior and his ally to realize the fight was far from over. Mars watched the enemy recover faster than before, realizing the battle would become impossible if the regeneration continued. The injured fighters nearby were already unable to stand. Without wasting time, Mars and his ally moved forward together, preparing a coordinated strike before the creature could adapt further. The monster's body twisted and expanded, forming a terrifying spider-like shape with multiple sharp limbs ready to attack. Both warriors charged in at once, clashing against the creature's swinging arms as sand scattered from the impact. He leapt higher and struck from the side, while his partner attacked the front, forcing the monster to block under relentless pressure. Mars kept attacking alongside his ally, pressing the monster from above while the Beast King form drove its limbs back with brute strength. Suddenly, a sharp strike knocked Mars off balance, sending him flying through the air before he could recover. Two fighters watching from a distance reacted instantly, realizing Mars would be killed if he crashed helplessly into the creature. A sword was thrown toward him at the last moment, and Mars caught it midair while forcing his body to twist into position. Using the momentum, Mars slashed forward, and his ally followed with a direct punch, landing a heavy blow on the monster's core. Mars and his ally pressed the monster against the wall, but his Beast King transformation was nearing its limit and sweat ran down his face. Realizing time was short, Mars prepared to use the same paralysis spell that had once stopped the creature before. The enemy shifted uneasily, while Mars understood the technique would drain nearly all his remaining power. With no other choice left, and the danger growing, he resolved to cast it despite the risk to himself. Energy gathered around his hand as he warned his ally to escape quickly. Once the spell took effect, Mars began casting his spell while his ally launched forward, drawing the monster's attention away from him. The creature swung its limbs wildly, and Mars's ally forced through the attack, striking hard despite the heavy pressure. Power surged through the ally's transformed body as he rushed in again, determined to keep the enemy from reaching Mars. Lightning exploded across the monster's body as Mars released the spell, forcing the creature to stiffen under the shock. After using all his strength, Mars collapsed backward, leaving the final moment of the battle in his ally's hands. The monster's body stiffened as the paralysis spell took hold, dark energy crackling around its limbs while it struggled to move. Seizing the chance, Mars rushed forward with clenched fists, focusing all remaining strength into a decisive strike. His punch slammed directly into the creature's torso, tearing through its hardened surface and shaking its core. Without slowing down, Mars followed with a crushing kick that drove the immobilized monster backward. Even as parts of its body began breaking apart, the creature attempted to regenerate again, but Mars stood firm, ready to finish the battle before the spell faded. Mars launched a final heavy strike, driving his full power into the monster's body and forcing it backward with violent impact. However, the paralysis began weakening, and the creature's dark shell started moving again as its resistance returned. In an instant, the monster counterattacked, striking Mars hard and sending him flying across the sand. Cracks spread across the enemy's body, but it revealed hidden strength in one arm, proving it had been holding back. Pain surged through Mars as blood spilled from his mouth, yet his eyes stayed focused, knowing the battle was not finished. For a brief moment, Mars remembered Ellie and the promise he made, then forced both hands against the monster's cracked core. Dark energy surged violently through his body as he gripped it tighter, ignoring the strain tearing at his muscles. Blood ran from his mouth while he dragged the creature closer, fully accepting the cost of what he was about to do. With a final roar, Mars released all remaining power into a single overwhelming blast at point-blank range. The explosion shattered the monster's core completely, sending fragments outward as Mars endured the impact without retreating. The shattered core crumbled into ash, and black smoke drifted upward, while Mars knelt alone on the quiet battlefield. Cheers rose from the survivors as they realized the monster had finally been defeated, and the danger had passed. A small companion ran toward Mars, and he accepted the embrace without resistance, exhausted but still standing. Nearby, his ally watched in silence as the celebration spread across the area and relief replaced fear. After a moment, Mars approached his young partner and handed over a wooden chest, signaling that the battle's reward now belonged to him. Mars held Ellie tightly, his battered hand resting on her head as his breathing grew slower after the battle. A young boy carrying the chest stood frozen, then bowed deeply while Mars entrusted Ellie's safety to him. Tears welled in the boy's eyes, yet he gathered his courage and accepted the responsibility without hesitation. With a faint smile, Mars remained beside Ellie as she clung to him, while gratitude and exhaustion marked the final quiet moment. A lone cross marked a grave in the wide field, standing quietly against the mountain view. Tears fell from the large beast as it lay near the grave. Several people remained nearby, watching in silence while the creature mourned. Mars stepped forward and gently patted the beast's head, urging it to move on from the painful place. Not long after, Ellie was brought to a peaceful area near a building. The beast rested on the ground, while Mars prepared to show something important. A treasure chest once owned by Sir Burns was revealed. With steady hands, Mars began opening it, ready to uncover what was inside. Inside the opened chest, Mars discovered a mid-tier holy grimoire carefully preserved within. Excitement spread across his face as he realized the book might finally remove Ellie's curse, bringing hope after months of struggle. Half a year passed since Sir Burns' death, and during that time Mars inherited the title of Count while leadership shifted within Almeria. Standing before the people, he pledged himself to the land's prosperity, prompting strong support from gathered adventurers and citizens. Later, the Almeria dungeon returned to its former state, its ant infestation gone, marking another major change for the territory. After defeating the enemy, Mars obtained an artificial magic stone crafted through a special method, recognizing its unusual value immediately. During its appraisal, he was warned to keep the stone confidential, understanding that revealing its existence could cause serious trouble. Elsewhere, his father purchased numerous beastkin, expanding their household and strengthening their territory's workforce and influence. Responsibility for Ellie was entrusted to Mars, and the large beast showed clear affection while remaining constantly by his side. Over time, Ellie became deeply attached to him, resting peacefully beside him and relying on his presence each day. The large beast clung tightly to Mars, refusing to let him move while Ellie watched nearby. Despite the struggle, the situation remained calm. A radiant figure appeared behind Clarice as a new title was granted to her, marking her as a saint with powerful healing abilities. Encouraged by her achievement, preparations began immediately to remove Ellie's curse, while Mars and the beast observed closely, concentrating deeply. Clarice gathered holy energy between her hands, forming a bright sphere that radiated steady light. When the light faded, Ellie's curse vanished completely, revealing her restored condition and updated abilities as relief spread among them. The curse finally broke, and Ellie suddenly clung to Mars, wrapping herself around him as the shock of freedom hit her body. Surprise spread across Clarice's face as Ellie reacted strongly, while Mars struggled to understand how quickly everything changed. After returning home, Ellie stayed close at all times, following Mars through daily routines and refusing to leave his side even for a moment. Mars tried to create distance, but Ellie broke down in tears, reminding him that her father trusted him with her care. Later, Mars gathered both girls together, deciding to speak clearly and settle the situation before it grew more complicated. Mars stood before Clarice and Ellie, gathering his thoughts carefully while both waited for his decision. With firm resolve, he declared that Clarice was the one he loved and intended to marry in the future. Shock overwhelmed Clarice as her face flushed deeply, struggling to process the sudden confession. Ellie lowered her gaze, acknowledging his feelings despite the pain visible in her expression. Determination replaced her sadness as she boldly announced her intention to remain by his side, even if only as his concubine. Ellie whispered quickly to Mars, leaving him confused and startled by what she suggested in front of Clarice. Hearing the explanation, Ellie jumped with joy while Mars forced an awkward smile, unsure how to respond to her enthusiasm. Confidence filled Ellie's face as she believed her choice had been accepted, feeling satisfied with how the situation turned out. Soon after, preparations were made for departure, and everyone gathered outside as an older adventurer promised to return in 3 years and handed Mars a sword. The carriage finally moved away, and Mars watched silently as it disappeared into the distance, realizing another important chapter had begun. Plans were set for Mars and Clarice to attend the Rister National Academy, while Clarice took responsibility for teaching Ellie basic reading and writing. 3 years later, training continued outside the estate, and Mars faced Ellie in a serious sword match as both showed steady growth. Using wind boots, Ellie launched herself into the air and attacked from above, relying on speed and magic to control her movement. Mars stayed calm and tracked her approach, preparing his blade while Ellie moved quickly through the air behind him. Close combat began, and Mars shifted into hand-to-hand fighting, forcing Ellie to react. As the duel became more intense, the sparring match intensified as Ellie rushed in with repeated strikes, forcing Mars to defend against a rapid series of attacks. Both fighters raised their arms and prepared to exchange blows, showing focus and determination as neither backed away. Ellie launched a strong kick, but Mars blocked it in time, stopping her momentum and pushing her off balance. Anger rose in Ellie as she continued pressing forward, aiming for Mars's head while he tried to stay steady under pressure. The fight ended abruptly when Ellie caught Mars in a tight chokehold, pinning him to the ground and proving her strength. Ellie tightened her chokehold around Mars from behind, warning him not to struggle while he tried to endure the pressure. At last, the match was stopped, and both collapsed onto the grass, breathing heavily after the intense exchange. Later, Clarice reviewed their progress, confirming their abilities had grown steadily and reminding them about the early departure scheduled for the next morning. Before leaving, guidance was given about the academy entrance exam, urging caution while assuring them they were well prepared. With firm expressions, Mars, Ellie and Clarice stepped forward together, ready to depart and begin the next stage of their journey. Mars arrived at the academy entrance with Clarice and Ellie, only to find a massive crowd gathered for the exam, leaving them overwhelmed. Officials began organizing the applicants, giving strict instructions while the three quietly followed the flow of the long line. Determination filled Mars as he walked forward with both girls, reminding himself that this time he would succeed and not repeat past failure. Moments later, the results struck him hard when his name was announced as failed, leaving him frozen in shock and disbelief. Mars entered the exam hall and received his paper. A staff member demanded the gold coin in his right hand. The examiners activated the appraisal and summoned 3 candidates. Mars stood beside 2 girls as the test began. Strange results appeared for the girls. Shock spread as officials questioned the displayed status. After they passed, the girls were ordered to move forward. Mars stepped ahead for his turn. Silence filled the room when the appraisal reacted differently to him. The examiners stared, showing unease. An official announced that those who failed should treat it as motivation. Mars stared at the results showing his failure. Confusion spread as he reviewed his paper. Several marks included strange symbols and unfamiliar evaluations. Different grading numbers appeared compared to the others. Realization slowly formed that his assessment method was unusual. Anxiety struck while he questioned whether zeros and symbols meant disqualification. Sweat formed as he tried to understand the meaning. Outside the hall, 2 familiar figures approached him. Their expressions carried surprise while questioning why someone accepted had failed. Mars defended himself strongly, refusing to accept the accusation of laziness. Frustration showed clearly as he insisted he had worked hard. Silas lost control and moved as if he wanted to attack. Sasha quickly restrained him, while insisting the situation needed to be understood. First, Ellie stepped forward and demanded to see Mars's paper. After reading it, she noticed something strange about the listed stats. Panic grew when Silas believed Mars had fallen into dark magic. Sasha questioned Mars carefully, but he remained confused and denied wrongdoing. Mars noticed Clarice and Ellie approaching from behind. Their calm expression suggested they had already passed, making Mars feel even more uncertain. He met Sasha and Silas outside the academy. Clarice greeted him warmly and admitted she was surprised by his growth. Sasha revealed that Silas had already become a staff member there. A teacher approached and asked about their relationship. Mars explained he knew Clarice, while Sasha mentioned meeting someone for the first time. The topic shifted to academy placements. Clarice was expected to enter Class S or A, and confirmation came that Ellie secured Class Attention moved to Ellie's background. Despite appearing human, her appraisal identified her as a beastman, raising quiet surprise. Mars introduced them as former allies. Sasha was revealed as Misha's mother. Ellie suddenly announced that Mars was her fiancé, stunning everyone nearby. Clarice followed by admitting she was engaged to him as well, leaving the group speechless. With a shy expression, Clarice quietly confirmed the engagement. Nearby, Silas remained silent while Ellie stood confidently beside Mars. Mars looked unsettled and questioned what happened to his exam results. Awkward tension quickly filled the space around them. Refusing to back down, Ellie declared she would leave if Mars failed. Calmly, Clarice stated she would withdraw too, showing the same determination. Trying to stop them, Mars urged both girls to enroll no matter the outcome. His thoughts became tangled as he struggled to handle their feelings. Mars was informed that he had failed the aptitude test. Ellie quickly reminded him the exam was not finished yet, because the practical test still remained. Silas warned that very few people ever passed, and even success could place Mars in the lowest class. Sasha instructed Clarice and Ellie to return inside the school. She then told Mars to come to the main gate the next day at noon. Clarice hesitated while walking away, still unsure about trusting Mars. Ellie remained confident and stayed close as the group separated. Both girls silently encouraged Mars and believed he would pass. Strengthened by their support, Mars smiled and promised he would succeed. Inside the academy arena, the practical exam was prepared under careful supervision. Crowds gathered around the field as staff members organized the candidates. An instructor stepped forward and explained the rules of the test. Among the participants, Mars listened attentively while maintaining a steady expression. Soon afterward, candidates were told to select a weapon from the available racks. According to Sasha's instructions, each participant had to line up before a staff member, except for her. Holding a sword, Mars accepted that he would fight one of the instructors. Noticing the long queue in front of Sasha, Mars understood that many feared her strength. With fierce confidence, Silas challenged Mars to prove he had not been slacking. Murmurs spread as one nervous candidate withdrew from the test. Elsewhere in the arena, Sasha overwhelmed her opponents with swift strikes. Several candidates fell before managing to respond. Across the field, defeated participants lay scattered beside dropped weapons. A staff member advanced to confront those still standing. Soon, Silas stood directly before Mars, eager for the clash. Mars requested restraint, but Silas remained excited. From above, the examiner announced the start. Tension rose as the battle began. Mars rushed forward with his sword raised, meeting Silas head on. A violent clash followed, as Silas smashed through the defense with raw force. Heavy strikes continued, pushing Mars backward. Silas admitted Mars had not been lying about training, yet he refused to slow down. Sweat formed on Mars's face as he struggled to block each attack. Realizing the gap in strength, he barely managed to stay standing. A sudden blow sent Mars flying across the arena. His grip weakened as the impact threw his body into the air. He crashed down hard, shocking the watching staff and candidates. Silence followed as everyone realized how overwhelming Silas truly was. Mars lay stunned on the ground while Silas watched closely. Surprise flickered across Silas's face as he admitted the fight exceeded his expectations. Suddenly, Silas grabbed Mars and hurled him across the arena. The impact echoed as Mars struggled to regain control mid-air. Determination filled Mars despite the pain spreading through his body. Silas raised his weapon, confident he would finish the match. Before the decisive blow landed, Sasha intervened and halted the fight. Her force disrupted the clash and sent both fighters apart. Silence followed as Sasha stood between them with a sharp gaze. Silas stiffened while Mars remained on the floor, realizing the battle had been stopped. Sasha stepped between the fighters and warned Silas not to embarrass himself. Mars remained bent over, still recovering from the brutal exchange. The examiner told Silas there was no need to continue the match. Shock spread across Silas's face as he began to suspect the reason. Mars watched in confusion as the official spoke. The examiner praised him for fighting well, leaving Mars unsure what that meant. A sudden announcement followed, and Mars was informed he had passed the practical exam. Relief rushed through Mars as he clenched his fists in joy. Gratitude filled him as he celebrated his success. Two girls waited in the plaza as the blonde-haired youth, Mars, approached them. After finishing his test, he confirmed his success. Relief spread across their faces while tension faded. Excitement quickly replaced worry as Mars joined them closely. Joy showed clearly in their expressions. Plans for a small celebration followed immediately. Mars listened while they decided on a proper meal. Crowds filled the town center while Mars walked between them. Gradually, a sense of unease surfaced. Suddenly, awareness came too late. Mars reacted at once and pulled one companion away. From the rooftop, Mars jumped down with the two girls following close behind. Nearby, a young elf girl spotted them and immediately reacted. Recognition struck her hard, and tears formed as the long gap between them became real. Inside, a quiet cafe, the group settled around a table and began eating. With a tense expression, the elf girl admitted she once wanted to speak to them at school. While the meal continued, attention turned toward Ellie's closeness to Mars, holding food in her hand. She introduced herself properly as Mars remained silent. Without hesitation, Ellie revealed she was Mars's fiancée. Shock overwhelmed the elf girl completely. During the meal, the group began discussing their school placements. Plates were nearly finished, but the topic quickly drew everyone's attention. Mars revealed he had been assigned to E class. Clarice and Ellie calmly stated they belonged to S class, creating immediate confusion at the table. Shock spread as the others questioned how Mars ended up ranked so low. Later, Mars arrived at the student dormitory and located his assigned room. Inside the room, Mars inspected the bunk beds and limited layout. The tight arrangement made it clear he would not have much privacy during his stay. Mars entered his dorm room and understood how class rank shaped student life. The tight space and plain furniture made his E-class status obvious. Not long after, two boys arrived with luggage and stepped inside. Both appeared confident and quickly settled in as his new roommates. A handshake confirmed their introduction, and Mars remained calm. His quiet confidence made one of them react with surprise. Soon the roommates suggested exploring the school before the entrance ceremony. Interest rose as the idea sounded exciting. Already having plans, Mars refused and rushed out alone. Later, he appeared outside, arriving late to meet someone waiting nearby. In the courtyard, Ellie stepped forward and showed her academy uniform to Mars. The outfit fit her well, and he quietly admired her appearance. Behind her, Misha and another girl demanded attention as well. Both displayed their uniforms proudly, seeking the same approval from Mars. Warm reactions followed as the three girls smiled brightly. Their happiness was clear, while Mars watched them with calm amusement. Soon after, students gathered before the Grand Academy building for the entrance ceremony. At the podium, the elf headmaster addressed the new students. Her long life and authority were evident as Mars listened carefully among the crowd. During the ceremony, the elf headmaster encouraged the students never to give up. Mars listened quietly as her calm voice carried across the hall. From the stage, she urged everyone to challenge themselves and move forward with ambition. A strange awareness lingered in Mars's mind, as if unseen eyes were watching him. Soon, the program shifted to a speech from the new student representative. Karen Lionel addressed the hall with confidence and grace. Recognized as the top-ranked student, she spoke about beginning a new life at the academy. With steady resolve, Karen declared her determination to achieve her dreams step by step. Mars focused on Karen during her speech and noticed her unusual skill. Curiosity grew as he tried to understand what her power truly meant. Suddenly, Karen reacted sharply and stared in his direction. Mars froze as he realized his appraisal ability might have been detected. Afterward, the entrance ceremony ended peacefully. Students left the hall with relief as the academy building stood silent behind them. Later, everyone gathered for their first lesson at the academy. The instructor announced that even frontline roles were required to learn magic standing before the class. The teacher explained the different types of magic. Mars listened carefully, knowing this knowledge would shape his future training. With renewed determination, Mars decided to give his full effort from the very first day. After homeroom, students gathered outside for martial arts class. The instructor ordered everyone to form pairs for training exercises. Carl quickly partnered with another classmate, leaving Mars standing nearby. He observed them calmly while considering his own situation. Attempts to find a partner followed as Mars approached several students. Each effort ended in quiet refusal, creating distance between him and the others. Soon, he remained alone in the training area while pairs formed across the field. Seeing Mars without a partner, the instructor decided he would train directly with him. Mars accepted the situation, even though the attention felt uncomfortable. Before training could begin, a large man approached the field. His presence drew attention as he walked toward Mars with confidence. Suddenly, the man demanded to train Mars personally and urged him to grab a sword. Mars immediately recognized the danger and grew uneasy. The instructor tried to intervene, warning that Mars was only an E-class student. The man's expression darkened, and pressure filled the area. Without hesitation, the instructor fled the training ground. Mars remained behind, realizing he had been left alone to face the situation himself. Mr. Wafer confronted Mars and declared he would train him harshly. Instead of retreating, Mars proposed a direct sword match to learn through real combat. Excitement flashed across Wafer's face as he accepted the challenge immediately. Mars steadied his grip, understanding the gap in experience between them. Steel clashed as Wafer launched a powerful strike without hesitation. Mars barely avoided the blow and countered with a quick swing of his own. Pressure intensified when Wafer demonstrated overwhelming strength and technique. Each exchange forced Mars to analyze his opponent carefully while defending himself. Determination filled Mars as he pushed forward despite the disadvantage. Mars pressed forward and met Wafer's strike with determination. Their wooden swords collided repeatedly as Wafer urged him to surpass his limits. A sudden command forced Mars to refocus when his thoughts drifted. Blows landed harder as the clash continued without pause. Even after being struck back several times, Mars rose again and resumed the challenge. Eventually, the match came to an end with Mars knocked to the ground. Wafer turned away while classmates approached to check on him. Lying on the field, Mars accepted the defeat calmly. Instead of frustration, he felt gratitude, recognizing how much he had learned from the harsh training. After the intense match, several classmates approached Mars with new respect. They admitted their earlier doubts and chose to stand beside him from that moment forward. From a distance, Mr. Wafer observed the scene with a quiet expression. Approval seemed evident as he acknowledged Mars's growth and determination. Soon, students gathered around Mars praising his performance during training, surrounded by smiles and encouragement. 3 academy boys, led by Mars, arrive at an imposing institution, prepared for formal study. Inside, Carefully prepared meals reflect status, routine, and discipline, shaping their daily academic lives together. Mars settles at a long table as companions join, marking growing connections within the academy. Later, additional students arrive with composed confidence, subtly shifting the group's balance and attention forward. Amid casual dining, curiosity surfaces, guiding Mars toward unfamiliar concepts that may influence future growth. A student explains the enchantment eye, describing it as a rare magic capable of controlling those with weaker power, even restricting movement regardless of gender. At the academy table, Mars listens while learning that Duke Regan and Lady Karen are both known as users of this formidable ability. Soon after, an elf woman named Sasha approaches Mars and formally requests his inside the Grand Chamber. Sasha announces Mars before a noblewoman of House Regan, maintaining strict decorum. Seated confidently, the noblewoman studies Mars carefully, recognizing him immediately and confirming his identity without hesitation. In the principal's office, Mars introduces himself as the second son of the Earl Bryant family, surprising the noblewoman who questions him closely. Mars confirms he has an older brother named Ike, who is also attending the academy, which immediately raises the woman's interest. Hearing Sasha's report, the noblewoman calmly explains that Ike is considered one of the top students at the school. Suddenly, she realizes her enchantment eye cannot appraise Mars at all, leaving Sasha confused and the room unsettled. Suspicion grows as they wonder if Mars carries a special item, while the noblewoman admits she has never encountered someone like him. In the principal's office, the staff reviews Mars's reported abilities, realizing his listed stats seem suspiciously ordinary despite his rare potential. Concern rises because the enchantment eye cannot appraise him, making it difficult to properly evaluate his rank within the academy system. After school, Mars meets Sasha and the others again, where she apologizes and explains she needs to buy a swimsuit for class. Plans form for the group to leave school grounds together, though Sasha shows clear dissatisfaction with the swimsuit designs available. Once the girls appear in swimwear, Mars is left stunned, realizing the situation has suddenly become far more distracting than expected. As evening approaches, Mars separates from the girls and warns them to be careful while they continue their outing without him. Inside a nearby clothing shop, the girls quickly collect several swimsuits and decide to try them on before choosing what to buy. Different designs are tested one after another, creating a mix of embarrassment, curiosity, and silent competition among them. After changing again, their confidence grows as the bolder outfits fit perfectly and match their individual styles. With shopping finished, the group leaves together carrying bags, looking satisfied as they head back toward the academy. Late at night, Mars pushes himself through a long run, knowing his weak endurance must improve if he wants to survive future trials. Strength training follows immediately, and he continues by practicing sword swings until his body feels heavy from exhaustion. Determination sharpens his focus as Mars sets a clear goal of defeating Professor Silas through constant effort. The next day, he attends an elective magic class where students are told to choose an elemental path for their training. Mars selects fire magic, and the instructor orders everyone to begin casting spells at a target to measure their ability. During practice, Mars watches other students cast basic fire spells, noticing their results are acceptable but not especially impressive. When his turn arrives, Mars releases fire with overwhelming force, shocking the class as the flames surge far beyond normal control. The instructor reacts strongly after seeing the target destroyed, realizing Mars's power level is far higher than expected. Later, Mars learns about the Labyrinth exam, which will determine official student placement based on performance and survival results. Rumors spread quickly about an intense rivalry forming, while Mars begins wondering what kind of strength is required to reach S-class. While discussing recent events, the girls mention that Karen has been distant and difficult to approach, suggesting she may be dealing with personal matters. Soon after, they notice Lady Karen walking alone, and the others warn Mars to address her properly due to her high status. Curiosity leads them toward the gym where fire magic class was held earlier, prompting them to secretly observe from outside. Inside, Karen calmly controls multiple flames at once, demonstrating precise mastery that leaves the watching students visibly impressed. After being discovered, the group apologizes, and Mars respectfully asks if she might consider teaching him during a future session. Karen gives Mars a firm warning, advising him not to appraise others carelessly and reminding him that such behavior could bring trouble upon himself. Standing before the girls, she cautions them as well, while Mars quietly apologizes for any misunderstanding caused by his actions. Suddenly, a furious student charges toward Ellie, intent on attacking her without hesitation as Mars reacts in alarm. Before the strike can land, Karen steps forward calmly, her expression unchanged despite the incoming blow. Activating the binding effect of her enchantment eye, she halts the attacker instantly, leaving him frozen mid-motion as the others watch in shock. After the confrontation, Karen leaves without hostility, while Ellie angrily tries to explain herself and offers an apology. The tension remains as Ellie storms off, leaving Mars and the others standing quietly while Karen disappears from sight. Blame shifts toward Ellie for mocking Mars earlier, and the group reminds her that she must properly apologize the next time they meet Karen. Embarrassment settles in as Ellie agrees, and the others decide they will approach Karen together to take responsibility for their actions. A few days later, before dawn, Mars continues training alone, frustrated that his flames still lack the control and precision Karen demonstrated. While reflecting on his role, Mars accepts that he is more suited to magic than frontline combat and struggles with controlling a fast-moving fireball. Karen observes his effort calmly and points out that halting a spell outright is far harder than adjusting its movement with proper control. Instead of stopping the flame, she instructs him to make it spin in small circles, gradually tightening the rotation until it stabilizes. With steady focus, Mars finally manages to control the swirling fire, surprising himself as confidence replaces frustration. She then explains that many students prefer water magic, causing fire magic to decline, which is why she chose to guide him. Karen reveals her true goal, explaining that she wants to restore fire magic's reputation and bring it back into the Academy's spotlight. Mars becomes uneasy and admits he felt she avoided teaching him before, unsure if she truly trusted him. Suspicion is clarified as Karen explains she assumed Mars was trying to gain favor, like others often do, but now she accepts his sincerity. Later, Mars meets his group again and mentions that he spoke with Karen during morning practice to learn more about fire magic. Shock spreads when the others reveal that Karen questioned why Mars remains in E-class, raising new doubts about his hidden potential. Mars explains his strict routine of running, strength training, sword practice, and regular fire magic sessions, declaring his determination to surpass Professor Silas. Hearing his goal, the girls ask to join his early morning training, eager to improve themselves alongside him, despite the demanding schedule. Encouraged by their enthusiasm, Mars agrees, and the group decides to begin training together at dawn, strengthening both their skills and unity. Mars, a blonde-haired youth, ran along the stone road at night with two girls beside him. Behind them, another girl struggled to keep pace, breathing heavily as exhaustion slowed her steps. Determined not to fall behind, she released wind magic to push herself forward. From above, she insisted she was fine and told them to continue training. Soon they stopped to rest under the lamps. Mars handed her water as she sat on the ground, still catching her breath. After drinking, she admitted she was barely keeping up with Mars. Even so, she resolved to train harder and close the gap. One girl rested while holding her water. Another quietly suggested that Mars should speak with Misha, since her mood had seemed worse recently. Under a tall street lamp, Misha sat alone on a bench with her head lowered, sitting beside her. Mars let her speak as she admitted she must look pathetic. Watching the others finish the course easily only made her feel smaller. Clarice and Ellie came to mind, along with Lady Karen's power. Compared to them, Misha believed she had nothing worth showing. With shame on her face, she apologized for failing and said she should stop training with them. Tears filled Misha's eyes as Mars smiled gently and expressed his wish to grow stronger together with her. Silhouetted beneath the night sky, they sat side by side on the bench and agreed to continue working hard together. The next day at the Academy arena, classmates discussed forming parties for the Labyrinth exam. Mars listened while others mentioned their completed group arrangements. Before he could decide, he called out to Clarice, Ellie, and Misha as they trained nearby. Surprise crossed their faces at his sudden approach. Instead of answering, a senior named Dominic appeared and declared that the three girls would join his swordsmanship class. Dominic confronted Mars and accused him of interfering with the girls from his class. With a calm smile, Mars introduced himself and firmly claimed Clarice, Ellie, and Misha as people important to him. Shock spread across Dominic's face. Angered by the response, Dominic challenged Mars and forced a wooden sword toward him. The girls watched as pressure mounted. Before Mars reacted, Clarice stepped forward and declared that Dominic must defeat her first. Her stance showed unwavering resolve. Unfazed, Dominic boasted about his skill and mocked Mars. The conflict deepened as pride clashed in the arena. The duel was accepted inside the arena, and Dominic faced Clarice with a training sword. Spectators gathered as both prepared to strike. Dominic acted confident and treated the match like a personal victory. His attitude made the tension grow even heavier. Mars stepped forward and stopped the situation from escalating further. He refused to let Clarice be dragged into a forced fight. A condition was set that Dominic would have to fight Mars if he defeated Clarice. Dominic agreed, still focused on proving himself. Clarice attacked first with speed and precision, catching Dominic off guard. The clash ended quickly as Dominic was knocked down hard. After Dominic fell, Ellie stepped forward and mocked his title, declaring he could not call himself a sword saint without defeating her first. Cheers erupted across the arena as Clara stood victorious over him. Students crowded around her, praising her strength and asking for future matches, realizing the attention overwhelmed her. Claris rushed away awkwardly. Mars followed closely behind, concerned she might have pushed herself too far. Soon after, an announcement gathered everyone to decide parties for the labyrinth exam. As Mars listened, someone gently placed a hand on his head from behind. He turned slightly, recognizing the familiar presence. A large hand pressed down on Mars's head as his assigned partner confidently declared their team set. While walking through the corridor, Mars learned their party would consist of only 2 members on the day of departure. Carriages lined the academy grounds. Mars met Claris, Ellie, and Misha as they prepared to leave separately. Before parting, they exchanged quiet words of concern and encouragement. The possibility of not seeing each other for some time weighed on them. A shout urged everyone to move out quickly. As the carriage began to depart, Mars looked back once more before heading toward the exam. Carriages rolled out from the academy gates as the students began their journey. After a long trip, the group arrived at Labyrinth City Arahan. The massive city stretched wide, showing how important the exam truly was. Students gathered near the labyrinth entrance in organized groups. Mars watched the other parties carefully, while tension grew among the competitors. Lady Karen raised her fist and led her team forward with confidence. The crowd responded as the moment to enter finally arrived. Party Karen was called first and stepped into the dark entrance. Mars remained behind, waiting as the exam officially began. The labyrinth exam officially began as Mars entered with his assigned partner. Both prepared their equipment and stepped into the dark passage. Inside, a group of goblins appeared in the stone corridor, holding clubs and moving forward with hostile expressions. Their numbers quickly filled the area. Mars and the other examinees faced the gathering enemies. One student reacted with fear as the goblins surrounded the group. Lady Karen raised her hand and released a powerful fire spell. The blast struck the center of the crowd with overwhelming force. When the smoke cleared, the goblins stood stunned around the scorched ground. The first attack ended instantly, showing the danger ahead. More goblins rushed forward from the darkness, charging wildly toward the examinees. 2 fighters from the front line leapt ahead to intercept the wave. Behind them, the rest of the group maintained formation and guarded the rear. Blades and fists moved quickly through the crowd as goblins were struck down. The battle spread across the corridor with constant movement. An archer provided support from above while another combatant cut through enemies at close range. Coordination between roles kept the pressure under control. From a distance, Mars observed the fight calmly beside his partner. The strength displayed on the field surpassed expectations. Mars moved forward with his large partner as goblins gathered deeper in the corridor. The noise of the battle echoed as they advanced into the next area. A wave of goblins charged toward them without hesitation. Mars prepared himself, keeping his stance steady despite the overwhelming numbers. Quick movements followed as Mars slipped through the enemies and avoided their attacks. His partner struck powerfully, sending several goblins flying back. After the clash, Mars spoke with a nearby fire mage who questioned his abilities. He admitted he could use fire magic as well, surprising her. Without waiting, Mars's partner urged him to hurry onward. The fire mage watched silently as Mars left, realizing he had been distracted even during the exam. Mars moved through the stone corridor with sharp focus, sensing danger ahead as footsteps echoed around him. A scarred man finally spotted him and watched as Mars was thrown into battle against multiple armed enemies at once. Nearby, an elf woman arrived at the northern front, studying the situation and realizing Mars had already been drawn into conflict. The scarred man questioned whether reporting directly to Duke Regan had been worth the risk, while observing Mars closely. Then Mars fought with speed and control, striking down opponents easily and proving his strength even while surrounded. With steady focus, Mars gripped his sword in his left hand, demonstrating control and precision that surprised the others watching him closely. Observing carefully, the large man described the importance of grip strength and balance, while the elf quietly acknowledged Mars's remarkable ability. Across the stone floor, defeated enemies lay scattered as Mars examined the aftermath, and the training session was brought to an end. Soon after, the elf prepared to move toward another front line, receiving gratitude from Mars as the man decided to remain and supervise. Later that night, flames crackled beside the fortress wall, while the group rested separately, conserving strength for the conflicts awaiting them. The elf stepped away from the others, deciding to take a brief rest along the quiet stone corridor, tension still lingering from the recent battles. Alone for a moment, she adjusted her clothing and wiped away sweat, her exhaustion revealing how demanding the front lines had become. Fatigue weighed on her as she considered the ongoing conflict, concern for her companion surfacing despite her attempt to relax. Elsewhere, Mars continued training with sharp focus, yet unease crept into his thoughts as he wondered about the others' safety. A calm explanation from a superior reassured the group, but the heavy atmosphere remained, hinting that greater challenges still awaited them. Mars and the large man stood among fallen enemies inside the stone fortress, noticing an unusual light shining from a nearby doorway. Stepping outside, they discovered a safe zone beyond the wall, which felt strangely calm compared to the battlefield behind them. A group of survivors gathered there, and the large man rushed forward, demanding an explanation for what had happened. Reports quickly spread that several party members had disappeared, and the search efforts so far had produced no results. Mars froze when he heard names of missing companions, realizing the danger was not over, and the situation was becoming worse. Desperation pushed Mars to move forward, yet a powerful grip restrained him, halting his steps despite the urgency in his eyes. Tension thickened inside the safe zone as questions about the missing members surfaced, and uncertainty spread among the gathered survivors. Frustration overtook the large man, his anger breaking through restraint while Mars was firmly directed to join the search effort. With little hesitation, both of them rushed back toward the front, determined to uncover the truth behind the sudden disappearances. Suddenly, an explosive force erupted along their path, scattering debris across the ground and signaling that a powerful enemy had appeared. Sasha appeared in the corridor, surprising Mars and Silas as she returned from resting, while others nearby recovered from injuries. Exhaustion showed on Sasha's face as she explained she had needed time to heal, though her concern remained focused on Karen's group. Several fighters admitted they were hurt, and their condition made it clear they could not properly join the search without slowing everyone down. A decision was made to send Mars with Sasha, trusting their strength while the rest stayed behind to protect the safe zone. Without delay, Mars and Sasha sprinted into the passage, prepared to defeat any enemies blocking their path toward the missing group. An enemy suddenly blocked the narrow corridor, forcing Sasha and Mars to react instantly, while maintaining their speed toward the inner passage. With precise timing, Sasha unleashed a swift technique that struck the creature and cleared their path without slowing their advance. They noticed a restrained monster left behind, realizing its capture suggested survivors were still somewhere deeper within the fortress. A heavy door stood ahead, and Mars sensed a familiar presence beyond it, confirming they were close to their missing companions. Bursting through the entrance, they found the girls safe inside, and relief spread across Mars's face as hope finally replaced his fear. 3 girls rushed forward the moment Mars entered, their relief clear as they realized he had come to find them. Emotion overcame the group, and they gathered tightly together, holding one another after the fear and uncertainty they had endured. Sasha checked on Misa while the others explained how they had discovered the passage and avoided further danger. Once everyone settled, attention turned to the missing leaders, and concern spread as more names were confirmed absent. Mars lowered his head in guilt, believing earlier weakness had contributed, while Sasha explained that Karen had been determined to break a difficult record. Morning revealed that Karen and the others had vanished, leaving the remaining members confused and worried about what had happened overnight. Calmly, Sasha explained she had suggested retreating earlier because traveling with injured members was too risky under those conditions. Attention shifted as the large man demanded clarity, and a plan was quickly formed to divide everyone into separate roles. Groups were organized carefully, assigning search duties to some, while others prepared to escort the weakened members back safely. Firm resolve appeared on Sasha's face as she accepted responsibility for leading the search. Despite concerns about bringing students into danger, the large man silenced the crowd and declared Mars would join the search team, ending any objections with forceful authority. Sasha confirmed the remaining groups understood their duties, ensuring the plan would continue without confusion or hesitation. 2 students insisted on coming as well, refusing to stay behind, despite being warned that the mission was too dangerous. One of them demonstrated water magic and created a strong barrier, proving they could support the search if needed. Mars agreed they would be useful, and Sasha finally accepted their help, allowing the team to move forward with added strength. The final search team assembled in silence, 6 members standing together as Sasha confirmed the group that would move forward. Inside the vast stone hall, a dark mass covered the ground, forcing them to stop and question what had happened ahead. A massive sealed door blocked their path, making it clear that advancing normally would not be possible. Without warning, heavy vibrations shook the chamber as something enormous activated behind the barrier. A towering golem emerged before them, and the team braced themselves as the monster prepared to attack. Shock spread through the team as they realized the golem was far stronger than monsters normally found at that level of the dungeon. Reacting instantly, Mars launched a powerful strike that hurled the massive construct backward, buying the others precious seconds to reposition. Fragments of stone scattered across the chamber, and the group watched in stunned silence as the towering enemy collapsed under the force. Confidence returned to Mars's expression once the threat was neutralized, and he urged the team to continue deeper without hesitation.